Since the birth of Call of Duty Zombies, every person who touched the game had a question the first time they saw the game mode. What was that weapon? 17 years, 40 mostly unique zombie maps, and exactly 75 wonder weapons later, this question is still uttered by every player and spectator when a new wonder weapon drops. Whether it was pulling the ray gun from the mystery box and Nocturne Totem, seeing your friend fly through the air with the paralyzer, or vaporizing hordes with the Void Sword, we all are united in some way by these truly wondrous creations. However, another question has been paired with this since the birth of the second wonder weapon. An overdone and mundane question at this point: what is the best wonder weapon? Nearly every single major zombies YouTuber, and some who aren't, have made a favorite wonder weapon video or best wonder weapon video. And they all practically boil down to, I went to round 100 and shot the gun. Here's the best ones in my opinion. But, like, what about guns in Black Ops 4? Those zombies on round 100 have a lot less health than those in Black Ops 3. And what about the number of zombies that can be killed by the weapon? Sure, you can kill a horde with it, but in Black Ops 3 a horde is 24. But nowadays in Black Ops 6 it's 32. And speaking of, nowadays in Black Ops 6 the zombie health caps at 50,000, but like in Black Ops 4 it caps at 11,272. And what about, you know, the fire rate and how long it takes to reload? And the more I saw these videos, the stronger my conviction became to finally settle the score and let everyone know, objectively, what the best Call of Duty Zombies wonder weapon is. And the only way to find this out is through the only way I know how, through the magic of mathematics. Get ready everyone, both nostalgic veterans seeing how your weapons of old fare against the rookies, and newcomers here to usurp the throne from your formers. Whether you are watching in chunks, all at once, putting me in the background, or on your second monitor, sit back and grab your pencils and calculators, because it's time to roll the box and place your bets on just what exactly is the objective best wonder weapon of all time. Now, with the intro out of the way, we can move on to describing what actually makes a wonder weapon the best. And if you don't actually care how scores are decided, or that you just want to figure it out on your own, I guess, or be entertained with the weapons sections themselves, I completely understand. I'm just a really nerdy guy who loves the math involved in these things, but if that isn't your thing, here's all you really need to know in a very quick summary. Keep in mind, you're probably going to miss some key details, but this is as best as I can summarize it. I will be covering all of Treyarch Zombies, specifically the Black Ops storyline. This excludes Vanguard and Modern Warfare 3 Zombies, since I don't own or like those games. Fight me if you have a problem with it. Each weapon will be analyzed in their most recent state. Keyword is recent. And I will only be analyzing gun-type weapons. This means no special grenades like the monkey bomb, shields, or equipment, since those would need their own equations and criteria, since it doesn't really fit the equation that I'm going to use. If you want to see that kind of video though, reviewing those kinds of things, let me know. I'm sure I'll make it. Now then, if you don't want to deep dive into how this is all done as objectively as I think I possibly could, go to the timestamp in the description. This is your final warning. That was the best summary I could give as to what kind of weapons I'll be reviewing. I'll give you a second while I load my metaphorical gun of information. I said it very quickly a second ago, but here's the list of criteria I used in determining which weapons I would be analyzing in more detail. First, only Treyarch Zombies games. If I didn't make that clear enough, this is mostly due to the fact that these are the only games that I have played, but also because when people think of Call of Duty Zombies, this is primarily what they think of. This also excludes Modern Warfare Zombies and Vanguard Zombies because, well, I don't have them, and you won't catch me dead playing them. Sorry, Scorcher enjoyers. Number 2, only gun type / melee type weapons. This means no shields, no equipment, no buildables, no specialist weapons, etc. Each of those require their own metric of comparison because, let's be honest, comparing each of the equipments to the wonder weapons, or each of the specialists to the wonder weapons, is just not a fair comparison, and there would really be no fair way to make an equation to compare all of them. Third, the weapon has to be wondrous in some way, or outright be listed as a wonder weapon. If I just said a weapon was cool or unique, I would have to review every single speedrun melee weapon in Black Ops 3, for example, which is just a waste of time as they aren't really wonder weapons, even if they are unique. After determining this limiting factor of which weapons I wanted to review, I then had to say, okay, how do I level the playing field? If you didn't already know this, not all zombies are born equally. Shocker, I know. But a round 100 zombie in Black Ops 2 is going to be exponentially stronger than a zombie in Black Ops 6. Similarly, special infected like dogs are going to be weaker than your typical zombie. So the first thing I decided is that all calculations going forward with this project has to be under the same base measurements. And I decided the best way to do this is to use the most recent game as a basis, since it is a good indication of what everything would look like going forward. Because of that, all calculations involving the killing potential of a weapon must assume that a single horde contains at maximum 32 zombies. This matters for weapons that kill entire hordes in a single shot. And we also have to assume that each zombie has 50,000 health. This is the maximum health in Black Ops 6 and matters most for weapons that deal a set number of damage. After determining this, I thought of other ways to level the playing field and immediately decided that ammo will not be a playing factor with these weapons. There may be some exceptions to this rule and I will explain them as they come up, but overall, assume every weapon will have infinite ammo so you can buy them. If you're booing me right now and already disliking the video, it's because you know I'm right. I mean, look at Black Ops 6. If we're using it as a basis, then ammo cannot matter since there are numerous ways to get ammo in a game other than just outright buying it. Yes, this will be more advantageous to some weapons more than others, but trust me when I say that it doesn't help nearly as much as you think it would. But finally, since we are using Black Ops 6 as a basis because it is the most recent engine, we have to also then use the most recent version of each weapon. I initially thought about using each weapon's stats from when they are the most optional, slickfire, but then I realized if any and all of these weapons were to return, they would be in their current state, not their most optimal, so it makes no sense to review them that way. Okay, Jesus, just talking about the limitations in the intro took almost 10 minutes. This is going to take forever. Regardless, now with the limitations out of the way, here is how I determined which weapons are objectively the best using what I know best. I created a completely arbitrary mathematical equation in the simplest terms I could think of. Here it is in all of its beauty. W equals K times RF times 1 minus D raised to the RT squared divided by N times T plus 1, all plus U. Now, that probably all looks like a bunch of mumbo jumbo, maybe some magic, but I will go from left to right, top to bottom, and explain what each variable means, why I felt it needed to be included, and what specifically is calculated / determined with each variable, because sometimes something as simple as reload time isn't actually as simple as it sounds for some weapons. Also, note that the numbers gathered are with no perks and no modifiers, just straight raw dog in the wonder weapons. I feel like I'm going to lose the rest of the audience that hasn't already left yet through this explanation, but first, W. W is the most simple thing I'm going to explain. This is just the final value we are calculating, and I'm just calling it W, short for wonder weapon value. This is basically the score that you care about that determines what weapons are better than other weapons. Again, this is in terms of wonder weapon, not in terms of killing efficiency. And you get it. K and N. This variable stands for kills, specifically kills of a normal zombie, though it may be more accurate to say the killing potential of a weapon. See, when making this list, the first quantity I thought of was obviously how deadly the weapon was. My immediate thought was, well, obviously, how many kills the weapon can get in a single piece of ammo. Then, the more I thought about it, I realized that some weapons fire multiple ammunitions per shot, and some even require a charge before shooting multiple shots. What do I do with them? And what about weapons that have overheating function? So I concluded that it should be the number of kills obtained per burst. The verbiage distinction is that If a weapon is like the ray gun, then we can just calculate the kills obtained per single shot. That's easy. But also for a weapon like the staffs, we can just calculate the kills obtained per charged shot. Also easy. But new problem. The ray gun is too weak. In fact, many of the wonder weapons are kinda ass and can't even kill a single zombie in one shot. That's when I determined that K needs to be a ratio. This ratio being the number of total damage done by the weapon per burst to the total base health of a zombie, 50,000, with the exception to this being obviously for weapons who do more than the total base health of a zombie, because if they do more than their health, it doesn't matter. The zombie's already dead. I can't double kill a zombie. Well, yet. They might make that. Believe it or not, in my hubris, I thought that was enough and started to move on before realizing there's a lot more going on than just how much damage a single zombie takes. Through determining how exactly damage is calculated, I also determined that in order to get the best possible outcome, the most ideal scenario needs to be taken into account. That may sound kind of weird, but let me explain. Is it likely that you're going to hit a headshot every single time you shoot a weapon? Not unless you're yours truly and also running an aimbot mod. But for numerical purposes, we're going to assume the absolute maximum potential of the weapon. Will the results seem realistic? Yeah, obviously. But that's why we need to consider the optimal scenario, as it gives us our upper limit of the weapon. And that's all we really care about, especially since we're looking at the upper limit of every single weapon. Again, the whole point is leveling the playing field. Knowing that we are looking at the maximum potential of the weapon, I also now need to make clear what the circumstances we are using the weapon in, and to put it simply, it's just the best possible scenario for the weapon. I know that sounds like a cop-out, but the scenario one weapon is in won't be the best scenario for another weapon. For example, having an entire horde spawn instantaneously is great for the Thunder Gun, but not for the Ray Gun Mark II. Similarly, having a horde spawn and a straight conga line coming out of a window is great for the Ray Gun Mark II, but not for the Thunder Gun. See what I'm getting at? Basically, assume the horde is spawning instantaneously in the best configuration possible for the weapon. This gives us our maximum killing potential, which we use for our variable K. If you still don't get it, don't worry about it. K just means the size of a genocide the weapon can commit in the most ideal scenario, per shot. Oh yeah, and in case you didn't get it from my long description, per shot is what N is in this equation. N is basically the number of shots / bursts fired, but for all weapons, this is reduced in terms of a single shot / burst. So if it makes it easier for you, just assume that N is always equal to 1 and just remove it from the equation. I realized late in the game that it's probably not necessary to be there, but I mean, I kept it there. I know that's kind of a long-winded explanation just for one variable, but this is the most complicated variable, so if you're already overwhelmed, don't worry about it, we're moving on. The next variable is RF. This stands for rate of fire. The next most important variable I thought of is obviously how fast the weapon can fire, specifically how many bursts that can be fired per second. Making it per second ensures that the measurement of this equation is primarily in terms of kills per second. This is due to the fact that K is measured in kills per shot / burst, and rate of fire is in terms of number of shots / bursts per second. Simplifying this equation gives us kills per second, basically. This one is pretty self-explanatory as long as you remember it isn't per ammo used, it is per shot fired from the weapon. The variable little d. This is a universal constant I'm using. For any other math nerds out there, the numerator of my equation may look familiar to you if you really squint. And that's because I completely plagiarized the exponential decay formula. For those of you who are unfamiliar, the exponential decay formula is, in standard form, a times 1 minus r raised to the x, where a is the original value, x is the duration of time to decay, and r is the decay constant, essentially how fast you want it to decay. There's also a different decay formula using Euler's constant, but that is typically used with larger values like half-lives. So yeah, I chose not to use that because we're dealing with video game weapons, not plutonium isotopes. But essentially, my D value is the same as the R value in the original decay equation. It's just little d stands for decay constant here because I'm unoriginal. RT. This stands for reload time. Reload time is an interesting one because it was the last thing that I wanted to include in the equation, but I wasn't sure how to include it. Originally, I thought maybe dividing the first two variables by reload time, therefore making it kills per second divided by seconds of not firing, but that felt too straightforward and didn't get the point of a lower reload time being important. See, when you're killing a zombie, taking a second to reload is bad, but often it isn't life-threatening. But a reload of 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4, the longer a reload takes, the more life-threatening and detrimental it is as a player. Because of that, I knew that I wanted to ensure that the longer the reload, the worse the W value would be in the end. So I had to square it to ensure this. But I knew that dividing the kills and rate of fire by reload time would heavily skew the results in favor of those weapons that do not need to reload. Think of it, if I'm dividing it by reload time, then we're just saying that, oh, every time it fires a second, we're reloading. That's just blatantly not true. But we need a way to include reload time, so this is what I decided on. If you disagree with my usage in the decay formula, well, prove me wrong. No, like seriously, create a mathematical proof and show me that what I'm doing is mathematically illogical and improve my equation. You may think that I'm like mad right now and that I'd get mad from that, but honestly, I'd just be hella impressed to the point of becoming feral. I wouldn't hate you, but my wife might after I talk her ear off about it. Oh, and an important distinction about reload time that needs to be made clear. This is not how long it takes from the start of the reload to when the clip is refilled. It is the time spent not firing the weapon due to a reload. This is worded very specifically because the first wording indicates that the reload time used is simply how long between an empty clip to when the weapon can fire again. And that regardless of if zombies are dying, this timing will be removed from the weapon's total score. This seems unfair to weapons that continue to kill via entities spawned even during the reload animation. Meanwhile, the second wording accounts for the nuance and ensures that the time it takes to load the next shot only matters for weapons that stop killing due to the reload. T. This variable is annoyingly complicated for some weapons and extremely simple and arbitrary for others. It is essentially the time between when the trigger is pulled and the damage starts accumulating / the zombie dies for weapons that, kill instantly. For many weapons, you may argue that it stuns the zombie even though it doesn't kill them instantly, but again, we don't care about stunning and secondary effects. We care about killing. These are weapons. Plus, I found that there are 3 reasons / scenarios for why it matters that there is a time between shot and killed. The first is crisis scenarios. If you're shooting a zombie and it doesn't die immediately, sometimes zombies can still hit you even though they're stunned, or at the very least, their body is still in the way and it blocks you from running away from the horde behind you. The second is respawn timings. See, if it takes 3 seconds to kill a zombie, that is 3 seconds you have to wait before that zombie is replaced after it respawns. And finally, the last one is double upping. See, if a zombie is still dying 1.5 seconds after they are shot, they may absorb a hit from your next shot, thus ruining the amount of kills you can get. This won't be used in the kills calculation due to us already assuming that we're using the weapons in their best case scenario, but this is still something that should be considered in general. Finally, if a weapon is able to kill in less than 10 frames, I count it as taking 0 seconds of delay since that timing is almost negligent and unnoticeable with most weapons and scenarios. This is also why the denominator is 1 plus t, because I'd rather avoid creating a black hole with the equation. Now, you may have been waiting for me this entire time to finally address the lone U out on the end, when in reality you should realize that U is always alone and U always will be. But for real, U, the variable, not you, the listener, is a mini equation. So U stands for uniqueness, and this equation is simply U equals C divided by M, where C is a constant, literally C stands for constant, that is equal to the number of maps that is acceptable for a wonder weapon to be repeatedly on and still be considered semi-unique. I set this to 3, as I think if it is in more than 3 maps, you can no longer really consider the weapon unique in any way. M is, logically, the actual number of maps that the wonder weapon has appeared in. I will say that this number M excludes any remakes and remasters, but includes reimaginings and Vanguard and Modern Warfare 3 since they are part of the main chronology. If that didn't make sense, basically Zombie Chronicles maps don't count towards this total, but the Black Ops 4 Aether maps do. 5 and Classified are 2 completely different maps in the same way that Nuketown and Alpha Omega are 2 completely different maps. but Black Ops 1 Nocturne Toten is the exact same thing as World at War Nocturne Toten, which is the exact same thing as Zombie Chronicles Nocturne Toten, which is the exact same thing as the Bunker in Forsaken and Cold War Zombies, which is, you know, still Nocturne Toten, which is the same as Black Ops. Anyway, and none of those will be counted towards the total score for each weapon. Oh, and sorry, I keep rambling. And any side mode maps will also not be counted towards the score if that wasn't already obvious. So Dead Ops Arcade, Grief, survival maps, all of those do not count towards this total score. I decided to have this U score added at the end due to the fact that it is essentially just a bonus category. It should not be used to be a deal breaker stat for any of these weapons, but it should be used to give a weapon a certain edge over other weapons. This is actually my favorite part of the equation. God, can you believe I have a wife and child? I have a favorite part of the equation. Because all of the other quantities address the weapon half of the wonder weapon name. But this uniqueness score is the only way I was able to include the wonder portion of its name. And I just think that's neat. C is also so small that at most as a weapon can get is 3 bonus points for being completely unique. But weapons like the ray gun don't get completely obliterated and removed from the running altogether. I also want to emphasize something about this equation. All, and I do mean all because I hate myself, of the data acquired here was obtained by myself. I did not rely on wikis or any other source except to confirm information I may have found or because there were no other options, and I will make that clear when it happens. But everything, without exception, was tested in-game myself multiple times. Decompiled code files were sifted through by the tens, and so many frames were counted in my video editor software to get the numbers perfect. The only tool I used to help me were cheat engines for Black Ops 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this was in order to save on time, otherwise it would have taken actual months before this video could come out, just getting the footage alone. Because of this, I'm also going to make note of any and all things that are in the code that I found that directly contradict something written in the Call of Duty Zombies fan wiki, or just that I found interesting in the code. If people really care enough, leave a comment and maybe I'll try and update the wikis with the information I found, but it's mostly dead, especially for the later games, so I just don't care too much for it. But essentially, assume that I have more information than the wiki if it is beyond Black Ops 3, as stats like damage are just rarely kept up on those pages anymore. One final note, I know, so many notes, before the list officially starts. Here's a pattern I noticed with all of the weapons, since I'm sure many of you are wondering what constitutes a good score. There seems to be 6 categories of weapons to keep in mind as you hear all of these numbers. Just keep this in the back of your mind for the W score so you know exactly what it means. A W score of 1 to 3 generally means that they are worse than most melee wonder weapons. These are like your bad wonder weapons. If they can't do the same damage as a melee wonder weapon, you should just avoid it. A W score of 3 to 5 means that they're about the same level of effectiveness as most melee wonder weapons. It's like, alright, it's just, it could have been so much more. A W score of 5 to 10 means that you're a pretty average wonder weapon. There's nothing really too much to complain about, but you just want it to be better. A W score of 10 to 15 means that you're a solid, good wonder weapon. A W score of 15 to 20 means that you are one of the greats, the GOATs. And finally, though, if you're able to get a W score of 20 or beyond, that means that you are the greatest of the greats. These ones that have a score higher than 20 are literally in competition with one another, and although one will have a score beyond all of the others, I can see an argument made that any weapon of 20 points or beyond can go up against one another, depending on the scenario. Okay, after all of that, we're finally going to get started with the first wonder weapon of all time. Subscribe if you enjoy. This is pretty much everything I do, and I'd love to do more of it more often. Subscribing helps me know that there's people out there wanting me to come back with an excessively long video and something pointless that I found point in. Alright, enough holding you hostage. Place your bets on which you think will be the best one. I promise, you'll be surprised. Revive me, bro. It's the first in our lineup. The iconic, the original, the underwhelming. The ray gun is so much better than it was when it first released, but still compared to its kin, the ray gun, even when upgraded to the Porter's X2 ray gun, simply falls far behind. Despite having first been available in our first ever mystery box location in an abandoned bunker known as Nocturne Toten almost 20 years ago, we still utilize its battery-powered, cartoonishly red ball-shaped explosive rounds in the modern day to deal 17,258 damage to the initial zombie directly hit to the head, with 6,950 damage dealt as splash damage to all zombies around. I will say, I emphasized the head there, but I'm 99% sure that body shot and headshot do not do more damage. I'm just forgetting as I'm reading this script. Through testing, I found that it can hit a max of 15 zombies with this splash damage. Multiplying 6,950 by 15 and adding the 17,258 initial damage, we get a total of 121,508 damage, or when divided by 50,000, the equivalent of 2.43 kills per shot. This is made up for with its fully automatic fire rate of 2.54 shots per second and a time to damage of 0 seconds. It is then immediately held back by its long-ass reload time of 3.9 seconds. Don't know why they decided that they had to nerf the ray gun even more with a long reload time. Now, if I was a coward, I would just say that the ray gun gets 0 points in the uniqueness score, since it has been in so many maps, not all of them. But I'm not a coward, and that total is 36. And because I'm so little of a coward that also has so much free time on his hand, apparently, here's the full list of all of them. Nocturne Toten, Verrucht, Shinonuma, Doris, Kino der Toten, 5, Ascension, Call of the Dead, Shangri-La, Moon, Transit, Nuketown Zombies, Die Rise, Mob of the Dead, Buried, Origins, Shadows of Evil, The Giant, Dreisendrache, Setsubo no Shima, Gorod Krovi, Revelations, Blood of the Dead, Classified, Alpha Omega, Tag der Toten, Die Maschine, Firebase Z, Mauer der Toten, Forsaken, Liberty Falls, Terminus, Citadel de Mort, The Tomb, Shattered Veil, and the last Black Ops 6 map. This portion of the script was made before it was announced, so yeah, that's what it's going to be called for a little bit. This means that we get a humongous bonus score point of 0.083. Adding this to the other variables, we get our first ever W score of 2.912. It's very lackluster, but I promise you, it can get worse. The Wonder Waffle is a delicious pastry that I hope we can one day get in-game. But the Wonder Waffle DG2 is a Tesla coil-powered electricity chaining beast of a weapon that has managed to be almost as iconic as the ray gun itself. Despite the weapon's German origins, we were first introduced to it in a Japanese swamp containing a German's headquarters with Japanese writing. Confused yet? This German-Japanese hybrid facility known as Shinonuma contained Richthofen's baby. Yet this weapon didn't reach its full potential until Doris, where it was able to be upgraded into its fully chromed out beauty known as the Wunderwaffe DG3JZ. In the modern day, we dropped the JZ from its name, much like the real man it was named after, and it is now known as just the Wunderwaffe DG3. In the Shattered Veil, the Wunderwaffe is hard stuck at being able to kill a maximum of 10 zombies at once, with a surprisingly high fire rate of 3.158 shots per second. These two values should be enough to carry it up to the greatest wonder weapons, if not for the fact that it takes an actual eternity to reload and kill. With a 4.5 second reload time and 4 seconds for a zombie to finish being electrocuted and actually die, you yourself might actually be dead by the time you get to use the weapon again. The weapon is also unfortunately not even original anymore, as it has been in a whopping 5 zombie maps, including Shinonuma, Doris, Call of the Dead, The Giant, and Shattered Veil. It may feel like that it's been in more, but again, you have to remember that we're excluding remakes and remasters, and it's been in a lot of them. So, people might be disappointed to hear that the Wunderwaffe only has a W score of 3.035, putting it only slightly above the ray gun. But that's how it goes, and get used to it. It's going to happen a lot in this video. Oh, a little fun fact I learned while making this video. The original Wunderwaffe was originally going to be in Tag der Toten. I actually made a Zombies Fun Facts short about this. The model, interactions, and everything minus the sound effects are in the game, and using some easy cheats, you can still give yourself the weapon. It's really cool. The ray gun's cousin from the North Pole, the Winter's Howl is a very controversial wonder weapon. Some people love it due to its design, while many others hate it due to its, I'll be nice, below average damage. And let me warn you right now, if you're one of the people who hate the Winter's Howl, you're going to hate this video. And all three of you out there that love the Winter's Howl, rejoice, as I provide the redemption arc that you were looking for. But in all seriousness, this will be the first weapon that we will get to look into the code of Black Ops 4 to see what specifically is going on in order to get the exact mechanisms of the weapon we are observing. In case you're wondering why we are reviewing the Winter's Howl first instead of the Thunder Gun, it is because originally the Thunder Gun was going to be on 5 first, and Kino was going to have the Wunderwaffe. Instead, 5 got this, and was kind of left in the dust. So since you could have played either 5 or Kino first, I decided to give 5 the chance to come in first over Kino der Toten for a change. Anyways, as stated, first introduced in 5, but really hitting its stride in the only other map it's in, the reimagining version of 5, Classified, the Winter's Howl is really not as bad as people make it out to be, if I wasn't already clear enough on that. When upgraded to the Winter's Fury, the base damage is doubled, and ammo is significantly increased. Now, unlike with previous weapons, I want to talk about everything other than the number of kills first, since that gets much more complicated. With a hefty 3.75 second reload time, this weapon definitely doesn't have everything going for it, but with an insane fire rate of 6 shots per second, it helps pick it up a little bit. It definitely needs this fire rate as its base damage is only 3,000 per shot, an extremely small amount, but this is still more than its Black Ops 1 version, which is not indicated in the wiki, by the way. However, you also need to remember that every single shot fired is actually hitting an entire horde of 32 zombies in this scenario. This means that our shot from our tiny pistol is actually doing a theoretical 96,000 damage, right now equivalent to 1.92 zombies. But we can actually do better than this, as the Winter Howl has a hidden mechanic that literally no one talks about or utilizes, even though it's a base mechanic of the weapon. Again, I'm into Zombies fun facts about this. Shatter damage. What is shatter damage? Oh, I'll tell you. See, whenever you freeze a zombie, it turns into a popsicle for a few seconds. And if you happen to shoot, melee, or just run into the popsicle, it will shatter and deal damage to all the zombies around it. Most importantly is that it also shatters other popsicles nearby. Now, why is this important? Let me introduce you to a little known thing known as a chain reaction. See, this shatter damage actually stacks. So although in the code it shows that the shatter damage only deals 750 damage, imagine if you can utilize an entire horde shattering. This would deal a whopping 24,000 damage just from breaking frozen zombies into the next incoming horde. However, here's where my compliments end. If you remember, our metric is in terms of per shot. So how do we include this shatter damage into our formula? Well, allow me to introduce you to the concept of damage potential. Let me illustrate it this way. If you had a weapon that after 9 shots suddenly do 90,000 damage, but only after all 9 shots were fired, you would divide that total damage by 9 to get the potential for this weapon to do 10,000 damage every single shot. Does that make sense? We then apply that same logic here. Firstly, we know that the Winter's Howl deals 3,000 damage to each zombie in a horde, totaling to 1.92 kills per shot. Therefore, we can then infer by dividing 32 zombies by 1.92 that it'll take 16.667 shots to kill an entire horde. However, by the time we reload and fire again, the initial zombies frozen would have already broken before you can reach the almost 17 shots required. So we would just use 9 shots for our equation since that is the maximum clip size. So if we assume we get 1.92 kills per shot times 9 shots, we can get that we can shatter a total of 17.28 zombies all at once into the next incoming horde. So now we take this metric and multiply it by the base inner shatter damage of 750, since we assume an optimal damage scenario, in order to get a theoretical damage of 12,960 damage and 9 shots. Now to get the potential per shot, we simply divide it by 9 to get 1,440 potential shatter damage per shot. Now, it sounds insignificant, but remember that this 1440 shatter damage is how much damage is being applied to an individual zombie, not an entire horde. Therefore, our final damage calculation is equal to 3000 base weapon damage shot, plus the 1440 potential shatter damage, all multiplied by the horde size of 32, divided by 50,000 the zombie health. This gives us 142,080 damage per shot, divided by 50,000 equals 2.8416 kills per shot over time. Inserting this into our equation, we find that our prototype popsicle producer has a W score of 9.788, a significantly better score than both the ray gun and the Wunderwaffe. After making such a blasphemous statement, I am now ready with arms wide open for the pitchforks. Although batteries are not included, the Thunder Gun, like the fist of Stalin up your ass, obliterates. Despite its Russian origins, it was first introduced in a German facility. Deja vu. Or I guess, déjà entendu? Anyways, utilizing humongous pressurized air cannons loaded with what looks like an actual car tire, the Thunder Gun quickly depressurizes in a single direction. Thankfully for you, the direction is pointed away, as it is able to effortlessly and almost beautifully ragdoll everything in its path. When upgraded to the Zeus cannon, much like the Wunderwaffe, the only thing that is upgraded really is just the number of shots per clip. And although it is useful in casual play, this just means that there isn't really a significant reason for upgrading other than for ammo. If it wasn't obvious enough already, it can clear an entire horde in a single shot with zero delay between when the trigger is pulled and when they return back to Agartha. It even has a relatively decent rate of fire at 2 shots per second. The main thing honestly holding it back is just its reload time at a debilitating 4 seconds. Turns out lugging tires back into an air cannon is now a slow process, go figure. I was also surprised to find out that it is only in 4 unique maps. It's probably Zombie Chronicles that's making me think it's in more maps just like the Wunderwaffe, but it's officially only in Kino der Toten, Ascension, Revelations, and Tag der Toten. They sure love putting it in finale maps, it seems. I'm calling it right now. Like I said, this is recorded before the final map comes out. I'm calling it, I'm making a statement that they're gonna bring the Thunder Gun back for the last Black Ops 6 map. They did it, the Wunderwaffe for Shattered Veil. I just have a feeling they're bringing the Thunder Gun back. It's been a while. And if I'm right, you all owe me a subscription. It's only fair. Hey, I don't make the rules. But after putting everything together, the Thunder Gun has an incredible, top of the charts, trend-setting score of 28.918, setting the standard going forward of what a fantastic wonder weapon is, to the surprise of no one familiar with the GOAT. Unlike anything we've ever seen before, the weird crab claw-like design of the VR11 is truly out of this world. One of the most alien-looking weapons in the series with a name inspired by equally extraterrestrial origins, it was introduced in Call of the Dead, and only making a return in Modern Warfare 3 Zombies, for some reason. The VR11's mere existence only raises more questions, but the only question I care about is why the hell is the weapon so bad? Even when upgraded to the biblically inspired VR11 Lazarus, it does very little to the zombies, only killing a single undead at a time. You can theoretically hit 3 shots in a row on one zombie to make it explode, but this is infrequent and unpredictable due to the human AI. Oh yeah, did I mention it turns zombies into humans? Yeah, it does that for some reason. Don't worry about it. Anyways, the weapon's ass. It kills only one zombie at a time and very slowly. That is, unless you invite a friend. See, in the introduction to this video, I never once stated that the weapon had to be used on solo. I only said that the weapons would be used in the most ideal situation. For the VR11 and the VR11 only, this is with a friend present. See, the Lazarus has a unique effect compared to its unupgraded counterpart, where when you shoot a teammate with it, they get 10 whole seconds of insta-kill. This makes counting the kills per shot very complicated, because now the question is, what weapon is your teammate using? There are numerous questions that I could ask, but it makes my brain hurt to think about it, so I said 2 hordes. I think killing 2 hordes in 10 seconds with practically any weapon on insta-kill in an ideal scenario is a relatively optimistic, yet optimistically realistic end result. The irregularities of this weapon's stats don't end there, unfortunately for me, because if you can stack insta-kill time, and believe me, you can, isn't the fire rate theoretically infinite? Well, no. Obviously not, that'd be a stupid conclusion to make. Even though I came to it initially. In the end, although the insta-kill time can stack, you're still only getting 10 seconds per shot. So the fire rate is essentially 1 shot every 10 seconds. Since every 10 seconds you kill 2 hordes due to its initial shot fired, the theoretical fire rate is just 1 shot every 10 seconds. You can simplify this in terms of a single shot, but I didn't want to, so I didn't. It shouldn't affect the math at all, but it does affect the part of my brain that says I don't want to do things, and that's what's really important. Finally, because we are somehow still not done with this weapon, the reload time is also not straightforward. Kill me and then revive me, please. The reload time is technically 0. If you're confused as to why this is, it may be because you skipped the explanation section or you just forgot, but this is because during the time you're reloading, the killing never stops. See, your killing is dependent on your teammates killing, and they get to have 10 seconds of insta-kill. So just reload during the 10 seconds of insta-kill and you'll be able to fire again before the insta-kill runs out. Make sense? Probably not, but don't worry about it. Basically, killing never stops, so why include a reload time? Thankfully, since your teammate powers up instantly, the time between shot and damage is 0, so we can finally put all of this math together to get us a W score of 7.9, putting it just below the Winter's Howl. Sadly, you just can't take the crown from the king. With the ticking of a satisfying clock that takes much too long, the Scavenger explodes under the scene with one of the most slick designs of any wonder weapon, yet provides some of the most lackluster damage of any weapon of all time. This long black sniper rifle fires its pulsating explosive shots with a 3-second delay to unleash 10,000 damage. Only a fifth of a zombie's max health is dealt with this huge fused bomb of a bullet. Much like my son when I tell him we can't go to the park today, I am disappointed. The Hyena Infrared doesn't help this disappointment by increasing the cool factor with a thermal sight, but literally doing nothing else. Sure, it doubles the clip size, I guess, but the damage doesn't even increase. Just why? Sure, it doubles the clip size, I guess, but the damage doesn't even increase. Just why? Did they think that Call of the Dead had 1 mediocre wonder weapon, so it might as well get 2? Well, much like my son when I tell him we can go to the park later, I feel a bit better knowing that each shot can hit an entire horde. So, our 10,000 damage is then multiplied by 32 to give us a total damage of 320,000, which is equivalent to 6.4 kills. Still disappointing, but it at least could be worse. Rate of fire is decent at 1 shot per second, I will say, but I'll never get over the potential this weapon lost. I pray that it one day returns as it only appears in Call of the Dead. But until then, we'll have to make do with firing 6 okay shots and then taking 2.5 seconds to reload just to keep unloading into George Romero. Rip to the GOAT. No disrespect, but you gotta die. I need that Wunderwaffe. Speaking of the Wunderwaffe, under these testing circumstances, the Scavenger is only slightly better than it, as when we put all our numbers together, we get a W score of 4.161. And don't get it twisted, the Wunderwaffe is a much better weapon, but as a wonder weapon, considering the uniqueness score, the Scavenger did get 3 uniqueness score points, doing most of the heavy lifting for it. The 31-79 JGB 215. I will just call it the baby gun henceforth because this is a long video and there's no reason not to shrink it where possible. This weapon has so much missed potential due to the fact that it should have been the first 4 elemental weapon set, and yes, I will never get over that lost potential. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I can make a video on it if you're curious, but you can also just look it up. I'll probably put a picture here. The baby gun was supposed to be just one of 4 different elemental wonder weapons on the map. Specifically, it would have been the Jade, Serpent / Dragon variant. Anyways, getting sidetracked already. The baby gun technically does 0 damage even when upgraded to the fractalizer, but that's due to the fact that it shrinks zombies, allowing them to be killed simply by walking into them. You would think this would make getting the number of kills difficult, but not really. Since you can hit an entire horde, the number of kills is set at 32 per shot. What really matters is how long it takes to walk into them, as that'll give us our fire rate, since it is the rate at which we literally kill them. From my testing, I found that it takes 3 seconds optimally to walk through the entire horde. And that's when I'm literally standing inches from the first zombie. You could use a separate weapon to shoot them instead, but I feel that it'll honestly just take longer in the long run. Same with using another friend to shoot them or something. But since it takes 3 seconds to kill them all, the fire rate is 1 shot every 3 seconds. Unfortunately, the reload time doesn't assist the theoretical slow fire rate, as it takes 3.25 seconds to reload the weapon. But you can kill zombies while reloading. Since, like I said, it takes 3 seconds to walk through the zombies, you only have to wait 0.25 seconds to shoot again, since during the 3-second walk of death, you will be reloading. Thus, the reload time is actually 0.25 seconds. And since you can walk into the horde the moment you fire the weapon, the time between shot and killed is surprisingly 0 seconds. Wrapping all of this together into a teeny tiny bow, we get a W score of 13.631. Completely obliterating the competition. Minus the thunder gun, obviously. Not even the jungle comic book gun can defeat the Russian propaganda generator, it seems. The Zap Guns. With a name like Zap Guns, you'd think more people would hate it, but for whatever reason, it works. The dual-wield Zap Guns, upgraded to the Porter's X2 Zap Guns, are the definition of a precision weapon. It deals infinite damage to a single zombie, with no splash or penetration whatsoever. The blue left and the red right, however, are a welcome splash of color in the desolate void of space, filling the emptiness with the smell of cooked, electrified zombie flesh. Well, if there is gas for you to smell, I mean. Ripped straight from a comic book, the Zap Guns somehow avoid looking cheesy and obliterating zombies instantly with no delay. These weapons are also interesting in that they're our first weapon to technically be 2 weapons. It has an attachment known as the Wave Gun, but that weapon will be reviewed on its own after this one. The same goes actually for all weapons that have an alternate / attachment form. However, my main interest is in the fact that it is also the first wonder weapon to be dual wield. This opens up the discussion to an interesting concept: firing styles. For a dual wield weapon, there are 2 ways that you can fire. You can sacrifice fire rate in exchange for never needing to reload, or you can choose to reload and instead double your fire rate. So, which is better, fire rate or reload speed? Luckily for you, I did the math already. It takes 3 seconds to reload the Zap Guns from empty, and if you choose to fire both guns at the same time, or close to it, and then reload once both are empty, you have an impressive fire rate of 6.612 shots per second. However, if you instead shoot one gun until it is empty and then swap to the other weapon, the rate of fire is halved to 3.306, but reload time is set to 0. For our Moon Citizen, in the first scenario, it gets a W score of 7.167. And if it chooses never to reload, it gets a W score of 6.306. Not a huge difference, but doubling the fire rate is just too good to pass up. This double score places it just below the Winter's Howl, meaning that I have yet another comment that just appeared complaining that I'm being biased. Also, I know you could technically fire only one for 3 seconds while the other reloads, and then you fire both for 1 second, totaling up to about 2 shots with double the fire rate, but this amount seems negligible, and I honestly just didn't want to do the math for this scenario if I'm being honest. Call me lazy if you want, but only if you call me handsome first. Utilizing microwave the way God unintended, the wave gun is formed through the impossible jigsawing of the zap guns together. Able to completely kill an entire horde in a single shot, the wave gun does it effortlessly with a decent 1.333 shots per second. Now here's the kicker about the wave gun. It actually has 0 delay between being shot and killed. Now I know what you're thinking. They do this whole animation where they like hop in place and like bleed from their eyes, and then they float into the air impossibly even when they're on Earth, and then explode in a Final Destination-esque gory explosion. However, the neat thing is, they actually die instantly. You get your points and your kill score goes up the moment that they are hit with the weapon. Zombies start respawning immediately after shot, despite what the game shows you. I was completely blown away by this revelation, which is quite the appropriate metaphor since, due to the instantaneous kill time, the wave gun acts almost identically to its earthly counterpart, the thunder gun. In fact, even the reload times are the exact same. Now, the main difference between them, however, is, other than the wave gun, only being on the moon, is that the wave gun fires slightly slower. This may seem inconsequential, but it adds up, as when mashing all of the values together, we get a W score of 21.774, significantly less than the thunder gun itself. Unsurprisingly, it couldn't surpass the King, but it was a mutiny attempt that Blackbeard himself might be impressed with. Shocking, I know. Calling this a wonder weapon is kind of a stretch, but it's a fictional weapon. I know that like taser fists and like similar weapons do exist, but it feels a little too wondrous to be considered a normal weapon. Plus, I wanted a baseline for melee wonder weapons, so here it is. Unsurprisingly, all melee wonder weapons are going to have a reload time of 0 seconds, but a delay time greater than 0 as it takes a little bit to swing the melee weapon. For the Galvanical specifically, punching a zombie as fast as possible takes 0.167 seconds, or 10 frames exactly. Keep this number in the back of your head because quite a lot of melee weapons are going to have this 10 frame delay. It's able to swing this 1.5 times, but the delay is still holding it back, unfortunately. Like most other melee weapons, though not all, the Galvanicles can also only hit one zombie at a time. The damage it deals is decent for a normal melee weapon, but not even close to a special among these giants that it's compared with at a measly 2,000 damage. This is equivalent to 0.04 kills, or 4% of a kill every swing. And since the Galvanicles are present on 5 maps, I was surprised by this too. Transit, Nuketown, Diarize, Buried, and Alpha Omega, basically all of the Victus maps plus Alpha Omega for some reason. I guess because it's Nuketown, and yeah. Its unique score is quite low, basically. And there's nothing going for the Galvanicles, but I was kind of counting on it so we could get our baseline, so it was kind of doomed from the start by my own devices. Basically, the Galvanicles may look ugly, but it makes every other melee weapon look prettier in comparison. Just like that never mind. Because of all of these bad stats, the Galvanicle scores our first and only W score of less than 1 at 0.651. So if you're curious how a normal weapon compares with these wondrous giants, well, the Galvanicles kind of gives you your sneak peek. Yeah, maybe some could be better than some of the really bad wonder weapons, but in general, they're gonna look something like the Galvanicles. But be happy, Galvanicles, you're in this video. You got to lay down among the giants. Utilizing their MacGyver-like creativity that would make Dennis Riffle proud, Victus created an absurd amalgamation of wires, a handbrake, a pressure gauge, and a jet engine, don't know what it was doing there, of all things, known as the Thrustodyne Aeronautics Model 23. However, as what should be expected of 4 random Americans led by a man with dementia, the jet gun sucked. Except, well, it didn't, and that's what made it suck. You know what I mean. It broke frequently, and it killed at a snail's pace. It was truly one of the worst wonder weapons of all time. So imagine my stupid face when I see the jet gun in action in Liberty Falls. Even without being upgraded, the jet gun becomes one of the best wonder weapons of all time overnight. When upgraded to the Scramjet Model 3200, the cooldown rate is significantly increased, and the secondary fire added to it by its creator increases in damage as well. This weapon is incredibly impressive, which is why it hurts me so much to review it. See, being a weapon with cooldown makes reviewing it extremely difficult and kind of unfair for it. See, just shooting one bullet at a time and getting that value doesn't work, because with other weapons, ammo's not a factor. But for a cooldown weapon, I have to take the cooldown into account. You can't just buy ammo like with other weapons, at least not to my knowledge. So I decided that I should review the jet gun in the 3 major ways you can use it. The right click only, holding down the trigger until it needs to recharge, and rhythmically using it so that your ammo doesn't actually ever go down. I will then take the maximum score of these 3 to get the best way to use the jet gun. I could take an average just to give like what a person over time on average is doing, but the whole point of this video is to get the optimal, so I might as well get the best score of these 3 ways of using it. I really thought it would be pretty close until I found out that the jet gun takes 16.5 seconds to recharge from empty. This is the longest reload, I think, of any weapon. And since the reload is so long, scenarios 1 and 2 do not matter, even though their killing rates are higher than situation 3. It's just so much reload time is basically making the number of kills per second effectively 0. Going from the longest reload time of any weapon to no reload time at all is simply too good to pass on. Plus, per tick, you can kill an impressive 8 zombies, so you're not missing out on much by slowing your fire rate from 5 revs per second when holding down the trigger to 1.25 revs per second by pumping. And since this gun is only on Transit and Liberty Falls, it gets a decent uniqueness score. All of this is to say that the jet gun has actually had quite the redemption arc, going from the bottom of the barrel, possibly worse than the ray gun, to a pretty good wonder weapon with a W score of 11.5, placing it just below the baby gun. If the jet gun can be redeemed, who knows what the future can hold. Although it kills like at least 8 zombies in 5 seconds, prepare to be disappointed if you think the Sliquifier is the greatest weapon of all time. This is due to the fact that everyone's favorite soap dispensing weapon was nerfed into oblivion after Diewise was released to the public. Despite this monstrous weapon existing only within the confines of China, it went from dealing infinite damage and chaining infinitely to literally being hard-coded to stop killing after round 100. As if that wasn't enough, it was also hard-coded to only be able to chain 16 kills per shot. Anything after that has to be through a new shot. Look at how they massacred my boy. So, if damage is dependent on the round and not the actual damage, what stat should be used? Well, to me it's easy. I'm just gonna use the damage equal to round 100 health on Black Ops 2, which might as well be infinite damage for our purposes. It's a ludicrous 5,525,295 damage. The wiki says 5.5 million, but there's the exact number if you're curious. But since zombie health caps at 50,000 in our scenario, we will just say 50,000. Therefore, each shot kills 16 zombies when chained together, and the time between shot and killed is theoretically 0. Yes, zombies slip and die, but that initial zombie is vaporized instantaneously, same with every other zombie that is basically touching that zombie getting vaporized. And I know that technically you should wait until 16 zombies are killed before another shot should be fired, but from what I can tell, these chains of 16 can stack. So there's really no reason for the fire rate to not be the gun's actual fire rate, which is 2.857 shots per second. This is cool and everything, but having a 4-second reload time before you can goo again really brings this weapon's score back down to earth. Tallying it all together, we get a slippery W score of 23.119. Despite our attempts to bring it back down to earth, it is still a fantastic weapon without a doubt that dethrones the wave gun. If you think it deserves higher than that, then you are higher than Diewise itself.
Come, demons. Feel your fate.
With an exquisite filigree, the Blundergut blooms onto the scene in Alcatraz, both in the past in Mob of the Dead and in the future in Blood of the Dead. When upgraded to the Sweeper, it also gets this dope lion decal that you can use when aiming down sight. This weapon is also the first of its kind to have an alternate form, which we will get to in a second. It is also the first weapon that we will have to come back to later, as it gains an additional form in the future. But since that weapon isn't introduced yet, just forget about it. I didn't say anything. The base Blundergut is a 4-cylinder shotgun that somehow fires 7 rounds per shot. I, unfortunately, could not find much of any code about the base Blundergut damage in the Black Ops 4 source code. Very unfortunate. So if you find anything, please let me know, and I'll either leave a comment or an update to this video giving it an updated score, but from my independent research, I found that a shot to the head kills a zombie in 1 hit on round 35, with penetration that seems to do about half damage the more it penetrates. So instead of using the round 35 health of 11,272 in Black Ops 4, I will simply say it does 50,000 damage to the head for the first zombie's hit. I know that that's kind of cheating and speculation, but it makes sense to me. If it halves with each zombie it passes, then the next zombie will take 25,000, then 12,500, then 6,250, and finally 3,125. From what I found, 5 is the max that is hit, hence why I'm stopping the numbers there. Though, again, I could be wrong, this is a lot of speculation. I promise this is the most speculation that I'll do on a weapon, but I have to. But totaling this damage together, we get a total of 96,875, or the equivalent of 1.9375 kills. Thankfully, since you could fire 2 shots when it's upgraded, I'm able to calculate the weapon can fire 3.333 shots per second. You know, like if it could. This fire rate is obviously limited by the reload speed of 2.5 seconds that is done quite frequently. Now, since the fire rate is actually higher than the actual amount of bullets you could output, I need to limit the fire rate since it can actually only fire 2 bullets before it needs to reload. This is the first weapon of its kind that has to be limited because of the sheer small clip size. Therefore, the actual fire rate is 2 shots every 2.5 seconds, which simplified to terms of 1 second is 0.8 shots per second. Unfortunate that it is limited so much, but having such a small clip size is unfortunately just really holding it back. Putting all these values together gives us a total W score of 2.625, making it so that it unfortunately has to join the toilet bowl that contains the weapons worse than the ray gun.
Oh nah.
If you thought this video couldn't get any worse, guess again, for I'm about to say something that will fill you with enough vitriol that you'll wither away. The Acid Gat is worse than the Blundergut. Through my research, I have found that objectively, the Acid Gat is just worse. And not even due to the recoil damage, though, that doesn't exactly help it. See, what makes the Acid Gat worse isn't its reload speed, it's identical at 2.5 seconds. Nor is it its damage, really. See, according to the code, the initial attack obliterates the zombie it hits with the sticky acid bomb that's fired. Since 3 bombs are fired per shot, 3 zombies get obliterated guaranteed, if it works optimally. Then the bursts themselves do 400 damage, which, you know, it's 400 damage, it's not a lot, but, you know, the 400 damage is multiplied by the 3 acid bombs, and then multiplied again by the horde size of 29. So the damage actually creeps up, and we get a total damage amount of 184,800, or 3.696 kills. So even the kills are greater than the Blundergat. In fact, it's almost double. So how in the Hellhound is it worse than the Blundergat? Well, it's simple. You gotta wait. And I don't like waiting. The Sweeper has the benefit of literally turning a zombie into red mist instantaneously, while the Vitriolic Withering takes 1.5 seconds for a direct impact zombie to die, or 2 seconds for the acid explosion to rack up damage. I can average this to give it some leeway and come up with a total of 1.75 seconds before damage starts accumulating, but that's not the only thing holding it back. Since the Acid Gat has to reload between every single shot, the fire rate is limited to only 1 shot every 2.5 seconds, essentially making the fire rate and the reload one and the same. This means that you can only fire 0.4 shots per second. Although having a distraction effect is a nice utility when it comes to killing zombies, it is only holding this weapon back. Melting our values together, we get a W score of 1.89, an almost entire metric below the base blunder get. I'm telling you, this video might get dissolved by dislikes by the end.
Oh no.
If you aren't hitting zombies, you're hitting your head on the ceiling with this weapon. We've all done it. People will continue to do it. Our wonder weapon version of a flamethrower that utilizes temporal anomalies has always been an odd juxtaposition with an underground western town lost in time. But I guess actually the more you think about it, a futuristic time dilation machine isn't too far off kilter for a underground western town lost in time. Huh. Well, literally everything about this weapon is complicated, so I'll do my best to explain it, but bear with me, it's gonna be a while. Firstly, the paralyzer when up... Oh my god, did you hear that explosion? I think someone died. Firstly, the paralyzer when upgraded to the petrifier has only one major difference, and that is its cooldown rate. When it's at its max potential, the petrifier refills around every third of a second, giving us our reload time. But this gets a little more complicated when you realize that, much like the jet gun, you can pump the weapon to use it more effectively. Again, the fire rate and the reload time are tied to one another. However, instead of killing instantly like the jet gun, the paralyzer likes to take its time. So you can either hold down the trigger until the zombie dies, or you can pump it to make sure that the reload time is 0. I've found that by pumping the damage, I can get on average 4.285 shots per second. I know this is contrary to the 0.333 second reload time, but this reload time has no buffer. The moment you stop firing, it immediately refills 1 ammo and starts counting up. This instantaneous jump of 1 ammo is what's causing this large discrepancy in the pumping strategy. Meanwhile, holding the trigger down for 1 second gets you 8.569 shots per second. Oh, also, side note, when I say shots, that is one number ticking on the paralyzer counter, if that wasn't clear enough. Each tick is also the exact same rate that a zombie takes damage, which we'll get to in a second. But we can either hold the trigger down for a second and use 8.569 shots, or pump it and get 4.285 shots out with 0 reload time. But if we hold down for a second, what's our reload time? Well, easy. If it takes a third of a second to reload 1 shot and we fire 8.569 shots, we simply multiply them together. This means that in order to reload those 8.569 shots, we need 2.853 seconds to reload. Again, this doesn't include the instantaneous ammo refill that I talked about a second ago, but over a theoretical infinite duration, it won't matter. So onto the really complex stuff. How exactly is damage dealt? According to the wiki, it's 310,000 divided by 0. What? That can't be right. Well, it kinda is. See, the paralyzer is interesting in the fact that damage doesn't actually start accumulating until a zombie has been fired for 1 second. That is because a zombie needs to be at a certain speed level before they take any sort of damage. The speed level coincidentally lines up with a 1 second fire regardless of the round. After that, it will take a whopping 60 damage. What? No, really. What is it? It's 60. It's 60 damage. But the fun part about the paralyzer is that with every tick of damage it takes, this base value increases by a random amount exponentially. I'm not entirely sure of the amount due to all of the different multipliers in the code, but essentially the paralyzer deals an upside down parabola of damage, where the inflection point is located at specifically 47,073. This means that after this point is reached, the damage gets turned into a ratio between the inflection point value and the actual damage value calculated. So, now that I've slowed your brains down into mush, what does that actually mean for us? Well, nothing. It was just cool really to talk about, but what really matters is what the game shows. And when I go to round 51, where a zombie in Black Ops 2 has 51,780 health, which is close enough to our desired health amount, it takes on average 4.5 seconds to kill a zombie. We can then multiply this duration by the ammo used per second, 8.569, to give us 38.5605 ammo to kill a zombie, or really an entire horde, since the paralyzer has a penetration effect. So then we can divide the horde 32 by the amount used, 38.5605, to give us that the Paralyzer has a killing potential of 0.830 kills per shot into a horde of zombies. And yes, this does take into account the 1 second buildup before damage is calculated. Okay, after that trudge through math, we get to do more math to find that our W score is ideally 5.342 if you simply fire for a full second and then wait for it to restore to full, versus the W score of 4.778 if you decide to fire in bursts. It's gonna hurt some of you to find out that we did all of that math just to find out that it's worse than the zap guns. But get used to it. You're not getting that time back. I know. It's impossible to improve on the original. How did they do it? Well, improve they did. And get used to the improvements. You're going to be seeing the Ray Gun Mark II a lot in this video. So much so that we get to go through more than a quarter of the alphabet. I hope you're ready. Hooray. But for now, we're just going to cover the base Mark II and its Pack-a-Punch variant, the Porter's Ray Gun Mark II. They decided to upgrade the original by basically changing everything that the original did. Instead of full auto, it's a 3-round burst. Instead of being a handgun, it's a 2-handed tactical rifle. Instead of firing green explosive balls, it fires green penetrative lasers. But I gotta say, they did improve. With an insane 10 times headshot multiplier, the Ray Gun Mark II at maximum potential deals 21,600 damage with each bullet to the head. Since this is a 3-round burst weapon, that is 64,800 damage per burst, and it seems to hit, from what I can tell, 5 zombies, equaling to 324,000 damage, or 6.48 kills per bullet. Now, you might say, well, shouldn't the max kills be 5 since it hits 5 zombies? To that I say, possibly. But my logic is that since 3 shots do more than needed to kill a single zombie, the leftover damage is essentially traveling to a different zombie behind it in the long run, as in, over an infinite amount of time, the number of kills you'd be getting with this weapon is 6.48, not 5. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, well, it's my video, just trust me. Also, there's no section for Black Ops 6 in the wiki for the Ray Gun Mark II, but according to previous iterations, this weapon deals 100,000 damage per shot when upgraded. This is, from what I can tell, correct, because back in the day, it just had an insane 21 point something multiplier to headshot. However, I am using the most recent game, and in the most recent game, it only has this 10 times multiplier. This weapon is able to fire 2.3 3-round bursts a second, yet taking an excruciating 4 seconds to reload. It seems that they couldn't improve that. Thankfully, damage is instantaneous, however. Now, you may think that the Ray Gun Mark II has been in a lot of maps, but I'm cheating a little for the Mark II. See, it is technically in every single Black Ops 2, 3, 4, and now 6 map, but this is only done retroactively after it was introduced into the map that it was made for. For instance, Nuketown doesn't have the Mark II, but after Buried was released, it sure did. So I'm only going to count the maps that the Ray Gun Mark II released for. This is shockingly only 3 maps. Again, it's actually 16 if we are including all of the maps it appears in. Black Ops 3 got it as a result of Zombies Chronicles, which is nothing but a bunch of remakes, which again, don't count towards the map total. So there's that one. But tallying it all together, we get a W score of 7.56, immediately taking over the Zap Gun's positions just to really rub it into the Paralyzer's face. Antenna? Whatever it has. Now, excuse me while I use the Mark II to recoil jump our way to the final Black Ops 2 map, Origins. So, what staff are we doing first? It's obviously the ice staff, right? It's on screen. No, we're not. I'm here to give you the one and only 2-for-1 special in this video. I think. I've lost kind of track of the script as I've made it, but I think it's the only one. This is only due to them being kind of lackluster, but they are still technically wonder weapons. I'm talking about the melee, because they all do the same damage. All of the staffs do the same damage. At least that's what I'm assuming, using the most recent Ice Staff. And the Sekhmet's Vigor. These and the Ice Staff will be in the tomb because for whatever reason, the Ice Staff is the favorite child of Treyarch. But from in-game damage numbers, the staff melee does exactly 3,367 damage, or 6.7% of a zombie's health. With a fire rate of only half a melee a second, the staff melee is just not impressive in the slightest. It's made even worse by the fact that it takes 0.55 seconds just for the melee to land after pressing the button. Not even bonus points will save it, since it is actually in 2 maps. Putting it all together, it somehow stays above 1 with a W score of 1.548, but that bonus score is really carrying it. Hopefully the weapon not meant for damage does better. See, this Egyptian goddess in weapon form, Sekhmet's Vigor, is meant to revive people. It's not meant to do damage, but since it does, here we are. Let's see, it does a measly 10,000 damage. Okay. And it seems to hit half a horde, ideally. Okay. So this totals to 160,000 damage, or 3.2 kills. Honestly, shockingly high for an attachment not meant for damage. None of this info is seemingly on the wiki, by the way, but I don't exactly blame it. It doesn't have enough ammo even if it wanted to reload, but it can seemingly shoot all 3 of its shots in a second with its really high fire rate. Now, what was really surprising was that there's apparently a 0.2 second delay after you fire before it hits the zombies. I don't know where the delay comes from, just happens. Finally, much like the melee, it is in 2 maps, Origins and the Tomb, and it only gets a uniqueness score of 1.5 because of it. Now, before I give the final score, please remember that although this score is good, remember that it only gets 3 shots. So really, the weapon is only viable if you had infinite ammo or points. Keep this in mind before you get offended. But this W score is a whopping 9.5. Doesn't sound high, but just you wait. It's honestly very respectable injury conjuring for a weapon meant for conjuring rejuvenation. Though lost for centuries, the power of the Norse god of snow bestows his arrow upon the wielder. Ull's arrow, or better known as the Ice Staff, is a weapon that summons an entire blizzard when charged. It is incredibly beautiful, incredibly elegant, and incredibly powerful. Unfortunately, it is also incredibly slow. Summoning a charged shot and waiting for a zombie to freeze to death takes a staggering 5 seconds. 3 to charge the shot to full, and 2 for a zombie to freeze and then take damage. However, we can use the concept of limits to bring this number down. See, although the charge is 3 seconds long, we can simply charge our next shot while the blizzard is currently killing. Since it is currently killing, we are never losing out on killing potential. So there's no reason to include detrimental time when it isn't hindering anything. I touched about this more in the intro. Therefore, this means that the only time that the charge time matters is the first initial shot. However, if we are firing blizzards out over a theoretically infinite amount of time, then the amount of time that the charging takes up is negligible. Essentially, this scenario is equivalent to total time lost being equal to 3 plus 2x. If we create a limit as x approaches to infinity, then we can see that 3 is essentially a negligible amount added and can be removed. Similarly, if you don't understand the concept of limits or it just kind of confuses you, we can also use the basics of calculus and take the derivative of the same equation to come to that same conclusion. Taking the derivative of our equation, which is basically just a simple way of saying how often the equation changes over time, we find that the derivative of this equation is 2. Therefore, our time lost is increasing by exactly 2 seconds per shot. So, in confusing shortness, ignore the 3, the 2-second animation is all that matters. And we're going to apply the same logic to any future weapons that have a charge time plus an animation time, so keep this in mind because I'm not going to be explaining this ever again. It's going to take too long if I do it every time. Now, it's able to balance out this sort of delay by firing a blizzard that lasts 6 seconds, completely killing whatever zombie it hits regardless of the round, and seems to do damage equal to the zombie's health. Since this blizzard lasts for 6 seconds, there is a double-edged sword that is going to be a frequent problem with all of these weapons that spawn entities. See, when you shoot something that persists longer than your reload time, then you can actually reload while the entity is actively killing. Essentially, this makes your reload time 0 since you're never losing out on any potential kills. However, on the flip side of that, since the entity is instantly killing zombies, there is no reason to fire the weapon any faster than the entity lasts, since it would just interrupt the previous entity. In this case, the blizzard. Due to this reasoning, the fire rate is only as fast as the entity's duration. Therefore, you get one shot every 6 seconds. Since the fire rate is so low, we have to be careful with how we determine the number of kills the weapon can get. And I think a fair standard for weapons like these that spawn entities is that the amount of time it takes to damage or kill a horde is equal to the total duration of the entity divided by the time between shot and killed, that death animation we talked about. This is because we are running under the same assumption as with all other weapons that hordes are spawning instantaneously, even for guns like the Thunder Gun, in order to get their best numbers. For instance, it's not likely whatsoever that the Thunder Gun is actually going to be able to clear out 2 hordes per second, since I had the 2 shot per second rate of fire. But we're assuming that hordes are spawning instantaneously to get their max potential. We're doing the same for these sorts of weapons. So for the Ice Staff, since it lasts for 6 seconds, that's enough time to kill 6 divided by 2-second animation, or 3 hordes of zombies, or 96. Conglomerating our numbers together, we get a W score of 6.833. Chill out, don't be a hothead. I know, it's worse than the Sekhmet's Vigor, but that doesn't mean that this is a bad weapon. Is it objectively worse? Okay, yeah, but that's only so long as you have the points to refill the Vigor's ammo. So, going forward with the rest of the staffs, do keep in mind that realistically, the Vigor is not better. Its raw stats might be better due to the speed that it kills compared to the actual staffs, giving it an objectively better status, but subjectively, in a real game scenario, you won't have enough points to keep feeding the weapon. So don't worry, the Vigor is the only weapon where this matters. If you don't like the results, just say the Vigor's W score is 1.5 and set everything else to 0, since eventually it will run out of ammo regardless of the scenario. The element of fire is given sole ownership to the wielder via the Kami of Fire, Kagutsuchi. Let his blood flow through your hands. The fire staff is an interesting one. It illustrates an interesting dynamic between the staffs. Both the ice and wind staff summon instant killing entities, whereas both the fire and lightning staff summon damage dealing entities that assist yet don't outright obliterate. Initially, I thought that the fire staff dealt zombie health as damage, similar to the ice and wind staffs, but not at all. According to the code, the damage is actually dependent on how much it is charged. No charge is 3,300 damage, partial charge is 11,500, and the fully charged shot is 20,000 damage. What is most interesting, though, is the lava that spawn. See, the lava spawn from these charged shots does not stack. Although you fire 3 pools of lava, shooting them on top of one another does not equal to 60,000 damage. The zombie will simply take 20,000 damage a single time. They never get hit more than once by the lava. All that happens is they take 20,000 damage and then they get ignited. While they are ignited, they take burn damage for 8 seconds and are completely invulnerable to the fire staff. This might be an oversight, but firing a second charge shot into the zombie while they're on fire does nothing. Only after their fire burns out do they take damage again. Thankfully for me doing the math, they actually indicate exactly how much burn damage they take. Thank God for that. It isn't much, but it's 450 damage per second for 8 seconds. Also, thank God. Not really. I mean, Treyarch put it in. Thank Treyarch, I guess. Whatever. Again, this doesn't sound like much, but remember that we are hitting an entire horde. Therefore, our damage calculation is equal to 20,000 initial damage, multiplied by 32, plus 450 burn damage, also times 32, times 8 seconds. This equals to 755,200 damage, or 15.104 kills per charged shot. And as a quick aside note, how the hell did the wiki get 300,000 damage for the staff's weapon? I think they have that for every single staff, and I don't know why. Even when we're counting like all of the burn damage and everything on a single zombie, that's still only 23,600 damage per zombie. Like, how did they get that number? Anyways, due to this unique burn damage interaction, this is the only time for a weapon that the reload time is technically 0, not because the zombies are still dying, but the exact opposite. See, since the zombies are invulnerable to your fire damage for 8 seconds, you reloading has no bearing whatsoever on the amount of damage that they end up taking. So you could freely take your 3-second reload during this 8 seconds and even charge up the next burst shot in time before the burn wears out. If it wasn't obvious enough already, however, this has the significant drawback of making the fire rate equal to once every 8 seconds. It sucks, but I mean, it did get a lot of benefits from it. Melting our numbers together, we get a W score of 4.888. Really unfortunate considering it is my favorite staff, but hey, now you can't complain about the ice staff. With the power of a Filipino storm, the ferocious jaws of Gidlat are yours to direct. Hopefully I pronounced it correctly. It's not Kimat, by the way. It's just spelled that way. It's pronounced like Gidlat when I looked it up, something like that. Anyways, Gidlat's Bite, or better known as the Lightning Staff, is a weapon that is so completely underwhelming it is shocking. When charged to full, it releases a static ball of lightning that deals only 3,500 damage per shot. It seems to fire a shot per second and does not last very long. Now, you might be wondering why I'm being so general with the stats, and that's because you should never use the Lightning Staff charge shot. It's worthless. Do not use it. It is the equivalent of a dog's howl. All noise, no damage. It is quite literally dog water. If you want to get something out of the staff, the bite is what you want. The developers knew this as well, as for whatever reason, the reload time of the Lightning Staff is faster than all of its cohorts at 2.5 seconds. Test it out if you don't believe me. The fire rate is also extremely fast at 1.429 shots per second. So, the big question is, how much damage does it do? I unfortunately could not find the base normal uncharged shot amount in the code. I might just be blind. But what I could find is that a body shot kills in a single shot on round 24, but not 25. This means that it does more than 3,953 and less than 4,348. So I took that and assumed that it meant that 4,000 damage per shot is probably dealt. This is way better than how much damage the charge shot does, but we can do even better than that. See, what a lot of people don't know is that the Lightning Staff actually has a headshot multiplier, unlike its cohorts. This staff is very unique, if you couldn't tell. To the head, the staff can one-shot on round 45, but not 46. I took that to mean that to the head, the staff can do 32,000 damage, since on 45 they have 29,230 health, and on 46 they have 32,153. If you're wondering why I decided on 32,000 and not 30,000, that's because 32,000 is a multiple of 4,000. This would mean that a headshot multiplier with the Lightning Staff is an 8 times multiplier, even. Crazy. This is a headshot multiplier beat only by the Ray Gun Mark II. But I'm not done yet. The Lightning Staff even deals penetration damage. It isn't a lot, but it looks like that it can hit 3 zombies in the head directly with the initial shot. I'm also somehow still not done yet, as the Lightning Staff is unique in that it deals both penetration and splash damage. Hitting a horde deals 4,000 normal body damage to the rest of the horde not hit with a headshot due to splash and shock damage. This means that our massive damage formula for the Lightning Staff is 32,000 headshot damage times 3 zombies hit plus 4,000 body shot damage times the remaining 29 zombies. This gives us 212,000 damage per shot, or 4.24 kills. And people really thought the staff was useless. Even the wiki, as the headshot multiplier barely makes a footnote on the page, and it claims that it does 30,000 damage again for whatever reason. Yet again, it doesn't explain how or where it got this metric from. Whatever. Oh, funny note about the headshot damage. For whatever reason, although it has a headshot multiplier, each of the headshot kills it gets does not count towards your headshot score counter. Really weird. But fusing these numbers together, we get a W score of 7.397. The staff, once seen as useless, surpasses 2 of its brethren. Turns out, if you thought the staff was bad, you're just bad. Get good, nerd. Boreas himself bestows upon you his fury, giving you power over the north wind. Boreas' fury, or better known as the Wind Staff, summons a tornado upon being charged and shot. This weapon is infamous for its underwhelming tornadoes and lackluster ammo, but with ammo taken out of the equation, I'm here to show you the true way to ideally use the Wind Staff. A way that makes it better than all of the other staffs. Getting right into the thick of it, in order to explain how to best use the Wind Staff, we need to go over the two major ways to use it: a half-charged shot and a full-charged shot. With a fully charged shot, you can summon a tornado that lasts for 10 seconds, or a tornado that lasts for 7 seconds at half charge. What is interesting about the summoning itself is that it acts like the thunder gun, blowing away an entire horde on the initial release of the shot. The tornado that remains then sucks in zombies, killing them once they reach the eye of the storm. This sounds incredibly powerful until you see with your own eyes just how incredibly slow they get pulled in. They would seriously move toward it faster by just walking. Plus, there's a low limit to how many can be pulled at the same time. It's almost embarrassing. Due to the harsh limit on the number of kills, I truly believe that a fully charged shot can only kill an additional horde in the 10-second duration of the tornado, and similarly, the half shot can only kill an additional half a horde during its 7-second duration. Regardless, in either case, the reload speed is set to 0 since you can reload during tornado time, and the main difference between the two shooting styles is that with a half shot, you can fire once every 7 seconds as stated before, or every 10 seconds with a full charge. So, which is better? Well, putting it all together, the full charge shot has a W score of 9.4, and the partial charge shot has a W score of 9.857. So, well, there you go. Partial shot is the better way to use a Wind Staff. The end. Let's move on. Or should we? See, I kind of glossed over it a second ago, but even a partially charged shot can actually kill an entire horde with the initial burst, right? So why not just say, screw the tornado, just use the north wind exclusively. If we just keep firing and not wait for the tornado to finish, we would have to eat the 3-second reload since, well, we can't wait. But our fire rate increases from once every 7 seconds to once every 2 seconds since we're using the partial charge shot. We would still be able to get a horde out of every one of these half charge shots, but blowing our numbers together, we get a W score of 13.084. It seems by using a bit of strategy, we can easily surpass all of the other staffs and also be the only staff to surpass Sekhmet's Vigor. After probably butchering pronunciations, offending at least one culture, and causing an entire community to get defensive over their favorite weapons, I'm glad to say that we are finally done with the staffs. With the best ones still not being able to surpass the zombie traveling might that is the baby gun. Our final weapon of Black Ops 2 is a melee weapon that is more notorious than it is powerful. Everyone loves the 1-inch punch and swears it is one of the strongest melee weapons of all time. And that's because it is. Do you like that little bait and switch there? The 1-inch punch is one of the few melee weapons that shockingly has no delay between meleeing and damage due to it taking less than 10 frames of time. Unshockingly, our fists don't need to reload and the fists are able to punch 1.5 times a second. Now, onto the most important thing. The melee damage does 11,275 damage per punch, regardless of the staff used. And yeah, that's a thing. The punch actually gains an elemental version depending on the staff used. This seemingly worked in Black Ops 2, but doesn't in Black Ops 3. My guess is this is a glitch and an oversight, but since it is the current version of the weapon, I can't assume that it is not working as intended. In Black Ops 2, the Ice Staff gave a freezing effect, the Wind Staff gave a huge knockback effect, the Lightning Staff gave it a stun effect, and the Fire Staff gave it a burn effect. If these still worked, then the Fire version would actually be the best version since the burn effect would give residual bonus damage. But as it stands, they're all equal. Oh, and in case you're wondering, the two melee animations seem to do the same damage. If you punch with one fist, it does the full 11,275 damage. But if you do the double punch animation, then each fist seems to do like half the damage, totaling to the same amount. At least from what I can tell. Punching our numbers together, we get a W score of 3.338, placing it right in front of even the Wonderwaff. Truly a weapon Bruce Lee himself would be proud of. A living creature encased in a hard shell, the Marastagwa Shadow Servant, or the Nar Ulaqua Teeth Consumer, or the Kor Maroth Eclipse Shadow, or the Lord Zarazor Flow Radiation, or the Astula Astoth Envy All. Whatever you want to call it, I'm just going to call it the Apothicon Servant, is an abomination that lives up to its description of ID gun, or interdimensional gun. Oh, and before I forget, there's actually a sixth name, because when you upgrade it in Revelations, it is known as the Istum Oth, or the Suffering/Sin Changer. Truly a weapon of many names, this black hole shooting arthropod defies logic and life itself in order to completely disintegrate law and order using chaos and destruction. The main difference between its upgraded and normal form is a longer black hole duration and a larger ammo capacity. Unlike the previously displayed wind staff, the suck feature of this weapon is much faster, as expected of a black hole. The hole itself sucks up zombies for a duration of 9 seconds before detonating after another second passes, obliterating any zombies even somewhat near its event horizon. Due to it being another entity spawning weapon, it is difficult to get an accurate number. So the best way to approach this is to see how long it takes to kill a horde. Every zombie takes 1 second once they enter the pull radius of the black hole to die, and it seems to be able to pull an entire horde near simultaneously. Applying this logic to the duration of the black hole, we can get our number of zombies killed. The black hole lasts 10 seconds, and it takes a second for the horde to be sucked up on average. So we have a total of 10 hordes, or an insane 320 zombies killed per shot, at the highest killing potential of any weapon by far, with zero exception. The obvious downside to this is that you can only fire 1 shot every 10 seconds. That's okay though, since it kills so many zombies that is still 32 zombies per second, or a horde per second. The 1 second pull brings this down further, however, but thankfully the reload time is 0, since we can always reload during the vortex killing time. So, sucking up all of our numbers into our formula and spitting them back out, we get a W score of 17.5, making it more efficient per shot at killing than its superiors, but slower overall by a significant margin. Now, please get this thing off of me. I hate how warm it feels. Ugh. Okay, here goes nothing. Krima Kham Lacham Him, or Electricity and Volatility, or better just known as the Storm Bow, is the first of the bows that we will be reviewing. Let me warn you that the bows were not created equally. There is such a huge gap between each of them that I'm going to be reviewing them from worst to best, as there is a clear canyon between them all. Firstly, this one. Unlike its staff counterpart, who is surprisingly better than most people make it out to be, the lightning bow is surprisingly a lot worse than most people make it out to be. Firstly, this is the only bow that summons an entity that persists. Void and fire spawn entities, but these entities are temporary and can stack with subsequent shots. The lightning bow does no such thing, and it summons a single electric storm that lasts for 9 seconds, meaning that this charged shot duration is also the fire rate, 1 shot every 9 seconds. To make matters worse, a 2.5 second animation occurs every time a zombie is killed by this bow. I'd say thankfully it has no reload time, but I mean that's the case for every one of these bows, so I can't really call it a benefit. It's just a main feature of the bows themselves. Anyways, so it has a long storm duration and all of that, but that doesn't sound so bad, right? I mean, it must have high damage.
Right? Wrong!
The storm only does 4,782 damage per damage tick. Now, how often are these ticks? Every 2 seconds. But to make matters even worse, it doesn't even hit an entire horde. For whatever reason, the storm focuses on the same 14 zombies until they are dead. No other zombie takes damage until one of the previous 14 dies. This means that the total damage the charged shot does is 4,782 times 14 zombies times the 9-second duration divided by the 2-second tick rate, which equals to 301,266 damage or 6.025 kills. Sounds like a lot until you remember that that's over 9 seconds. So I guess that's it, huh? Well, swirling our numbers together, we get a W score of 3.191. How disappointing. Until, for whatever reason, we realized that just like the lightning staff, there's a secondary function. There's an uncharged shot. See, the uncharged shot summons a tiny ball of lightning. This ball of lightning happens to hit every single zombie in a horde a single time. This doesn't sound like much, but the ball happens to also do the exact same damage as the charged shot, 4,782, without the need of only being able to hit 14 zombies at a time. Why this is such a big deal is that actually, unlike the storm, multiple balls can exist at the same time, and their damage coincidentally stacks. This means that you can fire your uncharged shot rate of 1.2 shots per second, dealing 4,782 damage per shot into an entire horde. To make it even better, killing with an uncharged shot has no animation whatsoever. They simply die immediately as if they were shot with a normal weapon. This means that the W score of an uncharged shot is actually 6.673. It sounds like a stuja, but it's true. The uncharged shot is simply the superior Matozar.
It's called clap on your bumper clap.
You're a bit fucked now, ain't you, flesh swords? Try that again. I dare you.
Osdor ulastas. Gia hoasen nær asmoharok.
With the fall from banishment, fire consumes all. Or, more colloquially known as the firebow, decimates all before it with a volcanic eruption. At least, that's what it looks like. See, I'm a bigger fan of its code name, the Rune Prison Bow. So I'm going to refer it as the Rune Bow from now on, because that sounds dope. Now, the Rune Bow is different from all the others in two ways. One, Noah J still hasn't made a tutorial for this bow, and two, its effect is actually random. See, when you fire the bow, there is a literal coin toss programmed into the code where 50% of the time the zombies will simply instantaneously die upon being shot, whereas the other 50% of the time the volcano effect that it's known for happens. This volcano has a rather long 3.5 second duration, but thankfully, since it only happens half the time, we can actually half this duration since, over time, only half the horde will be affected, bringing this time between shot and killed down to 1.75 seconds. The rest of the stats for this bow are very straightforward. It can kill one horde in a single shot, and it can fire one charged shot per second. Oh, and if you're wondering why pulling the bow back doesn't count as time between fired and killed, that's because the time is so short, it can be held for as long as you want, and animations typically overlap this minute amount of time that I felt it is negligible in the long run. This applies to all of the bows, by the way, not just the rune one. So, imprisoning these numbers together, we get a W score of 14.636, a very respectable score for a very respectable bow, placing it right above the baby gun and far above its stormy cousin.
Onsar lar shumnes astan.
Never disturb eternity, or you shall peer into the portal of decay. Known around as the Void, Shadow, or Demon Bow, yet in the code as the Demon Gate Bow, I'll simply refer to it as the Void Bow. This bow summons a portal as fast as you can pull back its bowstring, summoning Keeper Skulls with the ability to kill up to 12 zombies. Relying on these skulls would take forever, but luckily for us, ripping a hole in space-time deletes any zombies around it from existence. Unluckily for us, the area of effect is quite small. It is able to kill an entire horde in Black Ops 3, but I think it's very close since I wasn't able to consistently do it every time. This means that 24 can be instantly killed by the portal, but then the last remaining 8 need to be killed by the skulls. This is fine, we can just divide the duration it takes to die via skull by 4 since the ratio of not dead to dead is 1 to 4. So, how long does it take? Still less time than the lightning bow. The skulls latch onto a zombie fairly quickly and kill in 2 seconds once attached. This means that the time between shot and killed is 2 divided by 4 or 0.5 seconds. Thankfully, the portals stack impressively, much to the probable annoyance of whatever deity lies on the other side of the portal. This means that the fire rate remains at 1 a second, like the fire bow. Bringing all of these values together, we get an incredible score of 24.333, joining the ranks of godlike weapons, surpassing even the Sliquifier. Now, let's close the curtain on this segment before we catch the attention of some even bigger baddies.
The most powerful and evil entities in all the existences that ever existed.
Astagua, Zorarkos, Urgos, Kri Holo, Lukri Masalit.
Servant for the human species, and servant of keepers alike. The wolf bow, or the wolf's howl bow, as it's known in the code, is a devastating and incredibly beautifully breathtaking weapon to behold. Each shot fires a simple yet elegant blast of energy, removing the target's very soul from the body and blasting them away with a gentle howl of a wolf on the wind. Most likely modeled after the savage yet gentle soul of the Wolf King himself, there is nothing complicated about this weapon. It is the bow perfected, and arguably wonder weapons in its most perfected form. Able to effortlessly obliterate an entire horde once every second with 0 delay and no need to reload. There is no reason not to use this bow. In the hands of a sharpshooter, nothing will even get close to you. Honestly, I don't have much else to say other than I am blown away by this weapon and its metric-breaking W score of an even 35. No fancy gimmicks, no crazy firing techniques, just a wolf's howl whispering in the wind. And with that, we finish off our bows. I want to make mention that if you thought that the bow melee would be included in this video, that's because I did as well. See, when you melee with the bow, you actually stab the zombie with an arrow, and that's really cool. Here's the problem. It doesn't actually do anything. See, the damage dealt this way is actually the exact same damage as your base knife, and it has no extra effect to it. I didn't expect anything, to be fair, but I was still incredibly frustrated and disappointed. Botanists rejoice as the Masamune Tsukimashita with their Kusanagi no Tsurugi, or better known as the KT4. Unsure where the 4 comes from in this name, if I'm being honest, but if I had to guess, it's probably some Japanese trivia, because the Japanese word of 4 is shi. Sounds the exact same as the Japanese word for death, shi. So I'm guessing this is just a reference to that. Anyways, our Sliquifier copycat does its best to be as beautiful as possible, yet sacrificing efficiency to do so. Definitely not the samurai way. Shooting a zombie with the gun causes a 3-second animation to occur before causing the zombies to return to the earth. Much like the staves, this weapon works via a charge system with a partial and a full shot option. However, unlike the staves, damage is not affected by the level of charge, and instead only the duration of the ichor. If you choose to fire in half shots, you can fire every 1.75 seconds or every 2.5 seconds for a fully charged shot. This is due to a 1-second pause between shots and 0.75 seconds to increase the charge by 1 level. Reloading this weapon takes a fairly long but not unheard of 3 seconds, but more importantly, the damage gets quite complicated. See, in game, it took me around 7 seconds to kill 24 zombies. This would mean that it should get about 3.429 kills per second for 10 seconds for a partial shot, and for 15 seconds for a full shot, as these are the durations indicated in the code. However, that was until I found out that this duration gets cut off the moment that you get 9 kills exactly, regardless of your charge level. As soon as you get 9 kills, that puddle starts to go away. Now, it isn't instantaneous, that's why you're able to get more than 9 kills with the puddle, but it starts to recede. This is still enough time, since zombies are hit more or less at the same time as long as they touch the puddle, to kill a Black Ops 3 horde of 24 with a partially charged shot. But you would definitely need a fully charged shot to kill a Black Ops 6 horde of 32 with a fully charged shot. 이 결합하고 있어요? We get a W score of 5.161 for a half charged shot and 5.0168 for a fully charged shot. Not much of a difference, but half charge comes on top, placing this weapon very bottom middle of the pack, right next to the paralyzer. Also, I was gonna say Japanese there, but I'm sorry, I do not speak Japanese. You'll have to settle with Korean this time. The GKZ-45 Mark III, or better known in both the code and by the player base, the Raygun Mark III, is a weapon that should have been the perfected version of the raygun. However, instead, it is a flashy light show that does its best to look like the Apothicon Servant. The Raygun Mark III, or known when upgraded as the Maelstrom of Eris, is a weapon that requires firing the left side, followed immediately by the right, in order to summon a vortex that deals damage to zombies during its 3-second duration. It's flashy, it's cool, it only deals 30,000 damage. Actually, not even that is completely true. It deals 5,000 damage every half a second for a 3-second duration. It can possibly hit an entire horde, but I'm really giving it the benefit of the doubt for saying that, as I don't think realistically it could. But hey, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt because believe me when I say it doesn't help it that much. So, multiplying its full 30,000 potential damage by a horde of 32, we get 960,000 damage or 19.2 kills over 3 seconds. Like I said, it needs all the help it can get because the vortexes do not stack damage. 1 vortex is the same as 2 or 3 or 4 and so on. So fire rate is equal to 1 every 3 seconds, but it does benefit from the entity reload bonus. I just made that up, but entity reload bonus sounds like a cool name for the term I've been using. But anyways, its reload time is 3 seconds, the same duration as a vortex, so reload time gets sent down to 0 for our special boy. Now, when it does kill a zombie, the zombie gets disintegrated, but unfortunately for both us and the zombie, this disintegration is not immediate. Taking 3/4 of a second to fully die, the vortex is becoming less and less impressive when compared to even just its previous generation. Setting and spiking our numbers into place, we get a W score of 6.657. However, just to show how bad this weapon is, I want you to see what the weapon scores from just the right gun, the Mark III. See, the right gun is doing 90% of the heavy lifting of this weapon. The GKZ is doing very little. See, the Raygun Mark III on its own has to suffer the 3-second reload, yet it makes up this metric at being able to fire 4 times a second. It isn't slacking in damage either because unlike its combo form, it can actually kill a zombie on round 52 with a shot to the head. In fact, since it can penetrate, it can actually kill up to 4 zombies with a single shot to the head. Bringing this all together, we see that the right gun on its own is actually so much better than using both of them. Except there's a little quirk with using just the right gun. See, for whatever reason, during testing, and I believe I found it in the code, it has a 100% chance of shooting a zombie's head off without killing it. I'm not saying this happened on lower rounds, but on a 50,000 health zombie, that's what happened. Every single one of them started attacking, walking forward even after I shot its head, and the zombie took 2.5 seconds to die. So we have to make this T-score equal to 2.5. I know you can argue that you could just shoot the zombie again, but that's taking away from the number of kills acquired per shot and the fire rate significantly. And honestly, it just makes this scenario even more unrealistic than it already is if you have to shoot the same 4 zombies twice in a row. You're gonna lose them in the horde. So, accounting for the head giving, we get a W score of 5.881. Lower than using both, yes, but really not by much. It's such a little difference that honestly there's really no reason just to use whichever method you prefer. Mark III, my ass. It's literally worse than the Mark II. And what the hell is with the whispering? Othnor, Orogwath, Arkujalor, Arksoror, Lororzua, Astagua.
Will not change. Look, but no touch.
Astoth Arbzorark. The first creation. The summoning key. Well, this is unexpected. Not listed on any wiki list or wonder weapon list or ranking video or anything. Most don't consider it a wonder weapon, but I do. I think it should because it is so cool that you get to use it. Sure, it's just known as Ball in the code and is absolutely just a copy paste of the uplink ball from multiplayer, but it's dope. Don't get it twisted though, just because a lot of the code is copied over from multiplayer doesn't mean that it gets the same damage as in multiplayer, as the code for the summoning key's interactions is actually quite lengthy. First, there are two ways to use the summoning key. Whereas I could just list them as separate weapons, I'll just pick the better of the two to save on time and because they function essentially the same. First is the brutal method. You take the most powerful object in any known and unknown universe lying on the table and you bash it into a zombie's head. Straightforward. Nick would approve. This cannot hit more than one zombie at once, but it is able to swing 1.25 times a second, making it faster than some other melee weapons. Downside is, however, there's a wind-up time like every other melee weapon. It's only 10 frames, or 1/6 of a second once again, but it's still there. Putting it together, we get a fairly decent melee weapon with a W score of 4.071, but we can do better. See, the power really comes in from when you throw it. See, when you throw it, it releases a wave of energy upon landing that sucks the souls out of anything near it instantaneously. There is a technical reload time as you have to pick the ball back up, but from testing, it looks like if you throw it right at the ground, you can pick it up in 1 second, which is surprisingly fast for a throwable weapon. Not only that, but you can very reasonably kill 10 zombies in a single throw. Not much more due to a small area of effect, but 10 for certain. Due to the uniqueness of this weapon, the fire rate and reload speed are one and the same, since you can only throw once it is in your hands. Summoning these scores together, we get a key value of 12.5. Just a solid, good wonder weapon. What? What was that? Who are you?
You must help me.
Help you? Monty is a liar. Look closely. Oh. 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 I hate Dr. Monty. So yeah, the summoning key would be the most powerful object in any known and unknown universe if it actually killed. See, you might have noticed already, but in the footage, the summoning key doesn't actually kill anything. Every single zombie that is hit and dies is instantly respawned as if they were unintentionally killed by an entity. This means that yes, while all the other stats are true, the number of kills it can get is a fat 0, regardless of how you use it. This means that everything except for the uniqueness score for the summoning key is null and void. So much for a 12.5 W score. It is in fact worth 3. Just 3. And that's only because of the uniqueness. And it's lucky that I'm giving it that, because otherwise it would have sat even way below the ray gun at 0. Bah! Useless thing. Get out of here. I'm glad you exploded. Time to take a break from our Aether adventures and see how our now defunct universe that became merged with the new one is doing. Yeah, the story's confusing. Anyways, Chaos, and a chaotic mess it sure is a separate story with separate wonder weapons. The first one being the crack... What was that? Did you hear? Oh god, no.
Helion Salvo!
Ugh. So, while not technically a wonder weapon, it would be remiss of me to exclude what is essentially the ray gun of the Chaos crew. Even though the Aether maps get it as well, it's more popularly associated with the Chaos crew. The Helion Salvo, my friend's favorite weapon, or as it's known when upgraded, the Zytro's Orbital Arbalest, is a weapon more destructive than quite a few wonder weapons in Black Ops 4, and overall. And we have to see how it holds up against the entire lineup, because what's the point of a sci-fi beam weapon when nuke guns shoot gooder? Also, I'm aware it's spelled and probably pronounced Helion Salvo, but my friend has completely convinced me it's Helion Salvo, and it sounds so much better to me at this point. But all jokes aside, this weapon gets my official stamp of approval, making it a wonder weapon in all but name. It is so good that I would argue that this weapon acts as the gatekeeper between great weapons and the greatest weapons. No matter how powerful or unique your design is, if you cannot do better than this weapon, you cannot call yourself one of the greatest wonder weapons of all time. Now, onto the stats. The Helion Salvo is actually pretty simple. I couldn't find much code on it, but I didn't really need to. According to the file I could find, it deals 10,000 inner damage and 7,000 outer damage. However, interestingly, it still kills a zombie in round 35, which has 11,272. This means that a zombie in the inner circle actually takes both inner and outer damage, totaling to 17,000 damage. At least, that's what I'm assuming. Multiplying this by a horde, we get 544,000 or 10.88 zombies killed per shot. It is able to fire a very respectable 1.7 rockets per second, has 0 delay between shot and killed, and reloads faster than most wonder weapons at 2.5 seconds. Honestly, the only real drawback it has is the fact that it isn't every Black Ops 4 Zombies map, giving it a uniqueness score of only 3/8. But, I mean, that's to be expected of a normal weapon, to be fair. They're not really unique. Blasting onto the scene of Black Ops 4 with a very respectable W score of 13.798. The Helion Salvo comes in with a splash and tells the baby gun to move out of the way, and that Black Ops 4 isn't here to mess around. Well, for now.
E.
Oh, I've got more than enough balls to deal with each and every one of you scumscads.
Jormungandr, Inknyamba, Leviathan, Akorokamui, Kraken. These are all names for chthonic nightmares said to be able to be slain by the personal-sized cannon utilizing these beasts' very own attributes. The Kraken, when upgraded to the Kirin Kron Crasher, is destined for great things due to the enormous beasts it takes after. It is said in the zombies community legend that when a map is great, it has 4 elemental weapons, sometimes a 5th base form like the bows in Horizon Dracha, but the point still stands. Voyage of Despair must be the exception to this rule. This whole intro was merely hyperbolic grandstanding because I don't think the Kraken weapon could kill a giant squid or even a normal squid, let alone one that could give Lovecraft himself nightmares. Move over, Patient 13, Kraken's here, and it's ass. This weapon does a whopping 8,750 damage per shot, and it can hit optimally 10 at a time, giving it a total of 1.75 kills per shot. Yeah, remember like 30 seconds ago when I said that Black Ops 4 came in with a splash? Well, yeah, the Helion Salvo did. This comes in with a ripple in the water. Less damage than the Helion, less damage range, and even a slower fire rate at 1.2 shots per second. This weapon is barely a launcher, let alone the tri-cannon it's supposed to resemble and is referred to as. Although it doesn't have the damage of a cannon, it sure does have a reload time at 3.5 seconds long. It's definitely not the longest, but not something this bad of a weapon should have to worry about. The only thing it has going for it is that it's only on Voyage of Despair, and thank God for that. Shoving all of these weapons into our equation though, and firing them out with a great force, we get a W score of 4.120. Thank God that weapon's out of the way. I'd rather not confront my thalassophobia so directly. What do you mean there's 4 more of these? The Palmar of Fry is the ice variant of the Kraken, and I'll be calling it just Ice Kraken from now on. Same goes for all of the other variants of the Kraken. Expect these segments to be pretty fast because other than them all being named similarly by me, they also all have near identical stats. They all share the rate of fire of 1.2 a second, a reload time of 3.5, and a time between shot and damage of 0. Oh, and a uniqueness score, but that's obvious. Anyways, this slight chill of a weapon actually does the exact same damage as the base upgraded Kraken. The only difference between it and the base is that the Ice Kraken simply causes a slowdown effect that the others are not afforded, which honestly might be worth it because, as you'll come to find in a second, the others aren't exactly that much better. Having the exact same stats as the base Kraken, it is no surprise that it has a W score also of 4.12. It is only placing slightly higher than it because, again, it at least has the secondary effect that the base Kraken does not. The Gasp of a Hatchling is the fire variant of the Kraken. Honestly, to keep the joke running, should I just call the base gun Paralarva, or like Medusa's head since it's upgraded? Well, the first one would get too confusing, as you wouldn't know I'm talking about the Kraken, and the second sounds honestly cooler than the Kraken, so probably not. Anyways, back to business. The Fire Kraken differs from the base and the ice in one way. It deals residual burn damage. This burn damage isn't inconsequential, but a mere drop in the ocean, as it deals only 400 damage for 5 seconds for a total of 2000 damage. This only brings our amount of kills up to 2.15 and our W score to a final amount of 4.376, placing it just above the base and ice Kraken. Suck it, ice, another point for fire! Sorry, I'm biased towards fire and I hate ice. That's the fairy tale kid in me coming out. I don't care if it's cringe. That's me. I decided to combine the Elver's Whisper and Snakelet's Tooth because, like the base and Ice Kraken, they are essentially the same weapon. The Electric Kraken deals the same damage just like all of the others, but it is able to hit an entire horde. Unlike the measly 10 like before, it is with some difficulty, but it can hit a whole horde. It can also knock down zombies, but this is honestly more of a detriment than a benefit since the zombies laying down take up more space, making it hard to run around them while not incapacitated zombies are chasing you. Being able to hit an entire horde brings our kill total up to 5.6 and our W score to 6.585. Categorically, this makes this weapon an average wonder weapon, but I think that's an insult to average wonder weapons if I'm honest. Nevertheless, the Poison Kraken is arguably the best of the 5 version, but that's like saying fertilizer is the best form of dirt. You're not really complimenting the fertilizer, you're just saying it's a good form of dirt. The Poison Kraken deals the same amount of damage as the Electric Kraken, but the main benefit comes from the fact that it can shoot an infinite distance, penetrating any zombies in its way. This means that it can more easily hit an entire horde, and if you're good with the weapon, as much as you can be with it, you can hit most of the horde with the resulting explosion that comes from hitting something with the shot, like a wall or the floor. This explosion doesn't do any extra damage or anything, but it does cause the zombies to become disoriented. This is worse than the slowdown effect of the Ice Kraken, but much better than the knockdown effect that the Electric Kraken has. Now, excuse me as I get away from these weapons before I get seasick. Whew. Deep breaths. Take a drink. Congratulations! If you made it this far, you have officially made it a little over halfway through our weapons. Even though we're over halfway through the games, we're only just breaking the surface on the weapons. I'd recommend getting a snack or a drink, or my personal recommendation, liking and subscribing the video. If you like the video enough to watch this far, I'd appreciate it since, let's be honest, look at the graph. No one subscribed, and I'm trying to get to 1,000 if possible by the end of the year, or at least 500. This number lets me know that this is legitimate, and that more people than just me want to see what I make. If you have an idea of what you'd like to see analyzed or reviewed next, let me know in the comments. It doesn't have to be zombies if you don't want it to be, or even video games. I just like doing this stuff. Now, before we enter back into the portal that takes us back into the world of zombies, I want to say one more heartfelt thing. Thank you for watching. I can only work on these videos as a hobby in between life things, so I appreciate any people that have come back to see this and any new people checking this out and enjoying it. Okay, break time over. Back to the gore and carnage. With a skitter and a series of taps, Sarket's familiar crawls its way across your hand with a curious scent of fermented ozone. It is equal parts comforting and disturbing. But to cut the theatrics, what's with the series and putting arthropods on my hand? Like, is an isopod that shoots flames next? Okay, that sounds actually kind of cool, I won't lie. But my point still stands. I don't like insects on me. Anyways, the Death of Orion, or when upgraded, the Cirquet's Kiss, or as known in the code, the Special Crossbow, is a weapon that deals very interesting damage. The zombie initially shot with a charge shot is only damaged a single time, yet acts as a conduit for all of the other zombies' damage. So, first I'll calculate how much damage the single zombie takes since they're hit first. If you can take a look at this formula, here is how damage of the initial zombie is calculated. We really only care about the else part of this function. The first variable here is simply the damage multiplier for our zombie type, and since we're only looking at normal zombies, this variable is set to 1. The second unknown variable is the second damage multiplier for our zombie type. In this case, it's 2. Therefore, our damage is equal to 1 minus x minus 23 times 2 divided by 100. Clamped between the values of 0.01 and 1 multiplied by the max health of the zombie, where x is equal to the round number. This means that this weapon actually effectively stops doing damage on round 73. This is because 73 minus 23 is 50, times 2 is 100, divided by 100 is 1, and 1 minus 1 is 0, which is then clamped to 0.01. So, really, damage is just lowered to 1% of the zombie's health at its max potential. So, kinda sucks, but we kinda have to do that. But this is just for the lightning rod zombie. What about those struck by the lightning? That formula is much simpler, as every single zombie takes 20% of their maximum health as damage. There's also no limit on how many can be captured, just a range, which in ideal circumstances should be able to hold 32 zombies. So our damage formula is a complicated yet uncomplicated one. We start with 500 damage dealt to the initial zombie and then 31 zombies killed in 5 seconds. This is multiplied by 2 because the shock lasts for 10 seconds. Therefore, a total of 62 zombies plus 0.01 zombies is dealt in damage per shot. Since this is a lasting effect like many before it, the fire rate is 1 charged shot per 10 seconds unfortunately, but thankfully, like always, the T-score is 0 since you can just charge it while it's killing zombies. Oh, and if I didn't say it already, the weapon has no need to reload. That has less to do with the charge shot and more just how the weapon works. Chaining these numbers together, we get a W score of 9.201, placing it just behind the Winter's Howl. Oh, and for all of you nerds out there spamming the reload button and the fire button at the same time to shoot the gun, congrats. The uncharged shot does the same damage as the charged shot, but only the initial zombie shot damage. So every single one of those glitched lightning bolts you're shooting out only has a maximum potential damage of 1%. And using every single shot in the Death of Orion might kill 1 zombie. So be patient, nerds. One of us has to be. And it ain't gonna be me, because I'm a nerd too. I do that same shit. Are you kidding me?
This is my prison.
This video may be the death of me due to its length, but just like your favorite movie, this video is long enough to have callbacks. Remember when I said we'd be back to the Blundergat? Well, here we are. The Magmagat, or as it's known when upgraded, the Magmus Operandi, is the Blundergat in its most perfected form, hence the pun on its name. It kind of loses its identity as a mock blunderbuss in this form, but shooting hellish magma might do that to literally any weapon. The reload speed is the exact same as its brethren at 2.5 seconds, and the main difference comes with all the other stats. The Magmagat, as its name implies, leaves a pool of molten magma on the ground for zombies to step on and take residual burn damage. Luckily for it, if you shoot this magma at the ground, the time between shot and damage is 0 seconds. Unluckily for me, this means that damage is going to be extremely difficult to figure out, like with most other fire weapons. However, it is much less complicated than many others, as the burn damage from the magma is the only form of damage dealt by this weapon. There is no direct damage plus magma damage. You can shoot a zombie directly to obliterate it, but that is less efficient than just shooting it on the ground, as that really only guarantees 1 zombie and maybe a little with the extra with the subsequent explosion. This lava burn does a random amount between 15 to 20% of the zombie's health every second that damage is accumulated. This burn damage will last for 5 seconds and seems to affect 10 zombies at most. I have to phrase it this way because much like the KT4, the magma either lasts a set duration or dissipates once a number of zombies are caught on fire by it. From what I can tell, the number is 10. And since the pool is much smaller than the KT4, it always caps at 10. I'll average the random amounts and just say that it deals 17.5% of a zombie's health 5 times during the 5-second duration. So our kill formula is equal to 50,000 the max health times 0.175 times 10 zombies affected times 5 ticks per shot, which is 437,500 damage or 8.75 kills per shot. Unlike many other weapons that leave behind an entity, it is not limited to summoning a single entity at a time. But unlike the other weapons that can infinitely summon entities, this one cannot. It is limited to 2 entities at a time. You can summon 2 lava lakes, but the moment you shoot a third, the first immediately dissipates. Therefore, our rate of fire is equal to 2 shots every 5 seconds for the maximum damage potential. This is actually equal to 0.4 shots per second, and forging our numbers into a single one, we get a W score of 5.540, over double the score of the original Blendergat, and placing it just above the Paralyzer, its Black Ops 2 brother. We really just keep knocking the Paralyzer down farther and farther. Wait, do you hear that? No, not you, not you.
Oh yeah.
It seems we aren't allowed to leave the island yet, because there is one other wonder weapon exclusive to Blood of the Dead. Thankfully, it can obliterate the Warden and all of its minions with ease. Despite Black Ops 4's health system being limited to 11,272 health, they decided that they should make it so the Golden Spork Knife does exactly 75,809 damage. This is such an oddly specific number that I think I might be wrong. I'm not entirely sure because I think this is right. I have no idea what else this function could be doing. But at the same time, looking at the JSON files for the Golden Spork, the Golden Knife, and the Golden Knife Fork, we see that the Golden Knife and Golden Spork each do 10,000 melee damage, and the Golden Knife Fork does 20,000 damage, exactly double each of them. Which, I mean, makes sense considering the weapon is literally just the 2 of them duct taped together. So, despite my earlier statement, I'm actually going to go with this number because I feel more sure about the 20,000 after looking at the JSON file. This means that, sorry, many of the zombie YouTubers are wrong. The Spork Knife isn't an infinite damage melee weapon, nor does it do like 300,000 or something absurd that some people have said. It just does significantly more than the max health of the zombie, so it wasn't noticeable in Black Ops 4's engine. This means that the weapon does 0.4 kills per swing with a delay of 0.133 seconds, or 10 frames like most melee weapons. It has a fairly decent rate of fire at 1.333 swings per second, and totaling these all together, we get a W score of 3.47. So, still the best melee weapon so far, but it's nothing too crazy, and not worth the insane quest it takes to get it. It is very pretty looking though, just like my wife.
Damn, those bat people have some messed up legs. And is that a tail I see?
Guys, and when they see a pointy stick will go, hell yeah, just like this one. But I'm gonna be so for real with you right now. This is just a very large splinter. I mean, with 4,400 damage, each melee does 0.088 kills, but does have one of the fastest melee speeds at 1.8 stabs per second. As usual, it has a 10 frame swing animation, and honestly, that's about it. It's a piece of wood. It has a W score of 3.14 though, which is close to pi, so that's cool. I'll be real, I'm running out of things to say. It's cool because there's vampires on the map and it's programmed to one-shot those regardless of the round, but I mean for normal zombies, it's worse than the staff melee, and that's a secondary attachment to a main wonder weapon. I'll just save some time and say on to the next. Bringing all forms of monsters and undead to their doom, the Savage Impaler is a crossbow that Van Helsing himself would be happy to use. Despite its odd mechanisms, the weapon is perfected in its current state, being one of the few wonder weapons with no upgrade whatsoever. Although many people believe it to be a disappointing secondary to the main wonder weapon of this map, I believe it to be the perfect complement to it. Although it has 0 penetration capabilities, it is able to one-shot every single zombie to the head so long as it's to the head. If it's a headshot, all of the zombies' health is deleted. And if you hit it in the body, you actually have a 25% chance to just outright kill them as well. But okay, killing one single zombie per shot isn't exactly that impressive, but doing it at 5.217 bolts per second is kinda crazy. Despite its ancient design, it is able to outspeed most of its competition. With no delay between shot and kill and an average reload time of 2.5 seconds, the Savage Impaler is a consistent form of damage when you only need to kill a few zombies in between the shots of the Alistair's Annihilator. Pinning the numbers together, we get a W score of 6.786, placing it right above the Mark III. Now, I'll drop the facade. The real reason that this weapon and the previous ones was so short was to make room for the last Dead of the Night weapon. A weapon that just might take the cake for the most complicated wonder weapon of all time.
You are cordially invited to the firearm exhibition of one Alistair Rhodes. This random ray gun takes you on a journey around what you believe to be both possible and impossible. From voodoo to invisibility, from conjuring storms to summoning hell itself. This revolver perfected by Mr. Rhodes is the definition of a killing machine for all but the wielder.
Now, if only it wasn't confusing as hell. First things first, there are 4 entities this weapon can summon if that wasn't already obvious. A tornado, a fire portal, a shrink ray, and a pond of disorientation. I will go through the killing capabilities of each of these in that order. First, the tornado lasts for 12 seconds, and unfortunately, much like the stormbow, has a 3-second animation before a zombie is killed. Similar to the wind staff as well, it picks up zombies quite slowly. Due to these combining factors, I believe that the tornado has a max killing capability of 2 hordes, not the 4 that it may initially seem capable of with that 3-second animation. Next, the fire portal lasts as well for 12 seconds, but is much more efficient, killing in almost half the time at 1.617 seconds, and unlike the tornado, this form of killing can hit every single zombie at the same time, resulting in a max potential of 7.42 hordes. The Shrink Ray, meanwhile, has the downside of lasting the shortest at 10 seconds, but killing the fastest with only 2/3 of a second delay between hit and kill. This means that this mode of killing has the highest potential at 15 hordes. Finally, the pond is essentially a misfire of the gun. It makes zombies avoid you, but it doesn't deal any damage, let alone kill, and this fire mode is the only thing bringing this weapon down, to be honest. As soon as you get it, you'll want to fire it again immediately, which takes only 1 second, thankfully. Now, determining how frequent each of these activates is pretty straightforward, thankfully. It's a simple 1 in 4 chance for one of these to get picked with seemingly no rules in place for multiples in a row. So to get our stats, we can simply take the stats of each individual killing possibility and divide it by 4 to get our average amount per shot. Ooh. So, averaging the killing amount for all 4 of these, we get an average of 6.105 hordes per shot. We can use the same logic to get our fire rate. We average the durations of each shot, including the 1 second it takes to switch off of the distraction effect, to get 1 charge shot every 8.75 seconds. Averaging up the time delay we have from all of these weapons as well, we get an average delay of 1.321 seconds. Now, the reload time is interesting because it's technically 0 for all of the shot modes except the pond. Since it isn't killing, we have to take reload time into account. Therefore, we will take the reload time, 3.75 seconds, and divide it by 4 to get an average reload time of 0.9375 seconds. Rolling these numbers together, we get a jackpot score of 12.195. This is hardly a game-breaking number, obviously, but it is still an indicator of a very good wonder weapon. The pond mode is honestly the only thing holding this back from being one of the greatest wonder weapons of all time. Having that 1 in 4 dud is just, it's really painful. But we're just getting started. I meant it when I said at the beginning that Black Ops 4 isn't here to mess around. And the Alistair's Annihilator is just the start. The gauntlets, much like the bows, vary greatly in their strength. And if you didn't think it already, by the end of this you will see that the gauntlets are arguably the best quadruplets of wonder weapons. Better than the staves, and even potentially better than the bows. But before all that, they all share something that the bows failed to: a melee attack. After this, we will go through each of the gauntlets from worst to best, but until then, we need to talk about how these gauntlets actually have one of the best melee attacks of any wonder weapon. For some unknown reason, these gauntlets can hit 7 zombies at once from what I can tell with testing, and it might be infinite, it's just 7 was the max I could hit. It may not be a lot of damage at 2000, but being able to pummel 7 at once kind of balances this out. Totaling this damage, you get a total of basically 14,000 damage or 0.28 kills of pummel power per swing. Granted, these melees are a bit slower at only 1 a second and a 0.233 second delay between melee and kill, but they really didn't need to make this melee hit so many zombies at once. But they did anyways, and I appreciate it. Collecting our numbers, we get a W score of 3.227. Now, with much trepidation, we proceed to the Pantheon and discuss perhaps the most controversial, yet simultaneously the most powerful quartet. Provide your obol and pay the ferryman his due. Mortal and god alike will all one day require his services to cross the endless stream of Styx. Charon is no god, and perhaps that is best reflected in his gauntlet. Not as strong as the other godlike weapons, the Hand of Charon is still one of the best overall, if not for its slow pace of killing. Much like the gentle sway of his boat on the waves of the River of the Dead, this weapon chooses to take its time with killing, summoning a rather small pool of the Styx's bloody depths, drawing in all undead near it, beckoning them with its siren song to join its murky depths. This slow process of drawing them in and diluting them until they are one with the Ichor takes 3 entire seconds. This alone is detrimental enough, but combine this with the fact that the small pond decides to stay for an entire 20 seconds, the longest of any summoned entity, it becomes a little problematic. See, in these 20 seconds, only 6.667 hordes can be returned back to Tartarus. On its own, this sounds like plenty, but when compared to something like with the likes of, let's say, the Apothecary Servant, it's pitiful. Emulsifying these numbers together, we get a W score of 3.0833. Perhaps it's disappointing that the Gauntlet of Charon's likeness is so slow at ending the undead, but I believe it to be very fitting and poetic, because much like how the Gauntlet functions, death is consistent. Death is patient. Death is inevitable and will draw us all in back into the murky depths that we came from. One day.
Oh, yeah.
From the depths of Hades, we arise and embrace our Mother Earth. The hand of Gaia, much like life itself, is not something you can control, simply guide. Utilizing a charged attack, you summon a series of spikes that emerge from the ground, piercing all in its path, until after a brief pause, all of these spikes rupture with an explosive force. The damage, much like all of the others, is infinite, killing any zombies either pierced or unfortunate enough to be caught in its explosive wrath. The real question then becomes, how many can this kill? Unlike Charon, these spikes do not last very long. However, you are able to charge up your next earthly cannon while the previous one is exploding, effectively terminating the next horde of zombies while the first one is still exploding. This results in a fire rate as fast as you can charge your gauntlet, which happens to be 1.5 seconds. Unfortunately, this detonation is causing a time between shot and killed, but not much. There's the 1.5 second charge up time and also the 2-second detonation time to worry about. But, like I said, we can actually charge up the next shot while the previous one is detonating. So the only time we're waiting is the time difference between charging a charged shot and the detonation time, in addition to the, actual charge up time. So our time waiting is half a second plus the 1.5 second charge up, or 2 seconds of waiting. Better than the 3.5 I initially thought. Lastly, the number of kills it can get is uncomplicated, 32, an entire horde. It takes some skill and some rhythm, but you can do it. Mother believes in you. Nurturing our numbers, we get a W score of 10.111. It's almost fitting that the weapon based on Mother Nature personified remains in the middle of our list. Not too rough, yet not too soft. A guiding hand to hold as you make your way through life. High above, even higher than Mount Olympus itself, lies the great blue, endless sky. There an impossible hand falls like a shooting star landing within your grasp. The hand of Ouranos bestows upon you not just the power of wind, but the power of air itself. Luckily for me, these last two hands may summon entities, but these entities are reliant on ammo, not on a specific duration of time. If it relied on time, well, I might have problems calculating. Anyways, enough about speculation. The Hand of Ouranos summons a geist of air, blowing anything in front of the user instantaneously away. It fires a single one of its ammo per second that the trigger is held down, and it takes 1.5 seconds to get going initially. However, we can actually hold down the trigger all the way until this gun runs out of ammo, which is 50 when it is fully exalted and redeemed. Meaning that we can divide this 1.5 seconds by 50 since only the first shot matters. This gives us a time between shot and killed of 0.03 seconds. The only thing that's holding this weapon back, if you can even call it that, is that the weapon can only kill the zombies in the order that they appear in front of the user. It may kill zombies instantly in front of it with gales of wind, but it still needs to kill in front of those before it can kill the ones in the back. From what I can see, it can kill an entire horde in Black Ops 4 in a single ammo/second, but not much more if at all. Because of this, I'm hard capping it at 24 kills per ammo used, just 8 shy from a full horde of 32, because no matter the ideal situation you're in, there's gonna be a zombie in front of another, and killing a whole 32 in 1 second just isn't feasible. Wisping our numbers away into our formula, we get a W score of 26.301, a fantastic score, yet a score that the God of the Sky could not beat the man-made God of the Sky, the Thunder Gun. Something poetry, man is God, or whatever. I don't know. We went on quite the journey, from hell to earth to the sky, and now we arrive even above the sky itself. Quite the divine comedy. I'd say that all of the weapons capabilities go in order from the literal lowest to the literal highest, but here we arrive at daybreak for the primordial goddess of daylight, as she bestows a single beam of her sunlight upon you. With a gentle kiss of warmth, she allows you the usage of her hand, guiding a single concentrated ray of sunlight directly into the undead, much like a magnifying glass would into a horde of ants. Much like the sky it pierces, the Hand of Hemera has the exact same stats for both time shot and the fire rate itself. However, where the Hand of Sky fails to succeed, the sun has no such qualms. A benefit of attacking from the realm of the gods is that you're able to hit every single zombie in a single moment, like a hammer of dawn itself, unlike the orderly fashion of Ouranos. Just this small difference, the direction of attack, is enough to kill an entire horde of 32 with no problem in a single bit of ammo. Embracing the numbers together, we get a blinding W score of 34.068, surpassing what Ouranos could not, yet somehow being unable to attain the powers of paradise that the wolf bow channels. It's all quite poetic in so many ways with these gauntlets. So poetic, in fact, that this has all gotten a bit too serious. Here's a meme from my shitpost dealer to get us into reality again.
You alright, Chief?
I feel bad for vampires.
Why's that?
It's because they can't eat garlic bread.
What the Chief?
Garlic bread.
ZYXWVU. What do you mean there's no W? Oh, and you mean that W comes later? So ignore it. Okay, let me try again. ZYX and that's it. Okay, that was a tacky intro. But we begin our alphabetic journey through the Mark II's variants with Alpha Omega, and its 4 end of the alphabet variants. Minus W for some reason, because I wanted to save it. I don't know. Maybe they forgot about it. I don't know. Anyways, we start with the weakest of the 4, and the one that suffers most from this kind of video. The Raygun Mark II-V's main benefit is having infinite ammo. Unlucky for it, that's like a footnote in the requirements for this video. I barely mentioned it in the beginning, so it sucks to suck, I guess. Also, as a side note for all of these variants, their upgraded names are just kind of have Porters in it and 2. So like this one is Porter's Mark II V2 Raygun, I think, or Porter's Mark V2 Raygun. And that's lame, so I'm never bringing it up again. Just FYI. But the Mark II-V has no delay between shooting and damage. In fact, none of these Alpha Omega variants do. But this one is unique in the fact that it does not have a reload time and simply shoots all of its ammo and then recharges it. But the recharge, like so many other overheating weapons, is what makes this stat so difficult. Unlike with others, firing in bursts is not ideal and is actually best used by simply shooting all of its ammo at once due to the low damage, which we'll get to. So, after emptying all of our ammo, we have to wait a second before ammo starts filling up, after which it'll fill up 10 ammo in 2 seconds. I'm going to use this as our standard for this weapon, since if I use the number until its ammo is fully filled, that is 21 seconds, much too long. Meanwhile, this weapon actually fires 10 shots per second, so taking the time to reload the bullets shot after a second makes more sense. So, our reload time is actually 3 seconds when all is said and done, basically. Finally, the damage. Oh, the damage. There isn't much code for these Mark II variants, but from testing, this weapon one-shots to the head on round 28, but not on round 29. This tells me that it should be doing 6,000 damage by my estimates, but that's just the direct impact. See, every 3 shots fired, a lightning bolt will chain electricity into 7 zombies, including the original zombie getting shot. This stuns them and deals a whopping 500 damage to each of them. I know, crazy. Literally pennies. This means that damage per shot is equal to the 3,500 total arc damage divided by 3, plus our 6,000 damage headshot, coming to a total of 7,166.667 damage, or 0.143 kills. Chucking this gun into the garbage, we get a W skill of 3.901, significantly worse than the base model Raygun Mark II in every way. I thought V stands for Volt, if I had to guess, but from its performance, I think it should be V for very bad. Got him. I'm so clever. X marks the spot on Alpha Omega. If you give even iota of a zeta for this weapon, you are a true Sigma. If not, you are the Gamma Beta. Kappa? How many alphabet jokes can I make? Too many. But for real, the Raygun Mark II X is unique in that for whatever reason, it experiences mitosis once entered into the Pack-a-Punch machine, becoming 2 fully automatic ray guns in a split second. Much like every other dual-wield weaponry in our video thus far, this weapon has 2 modes of firing, one at a time and both simultaneously. Firing one at a time, we get a rate of fire of 12 shots per second and a reload time of not 0, but 1.383 seconds due to just how fast it shoots with little ammo in each clip. Meanwhile, firing both gives us an insane 24 shots per second, but a long reload time of 4 seconds. The weapon has no delay between shot and fired, but the damage is much more interesting. See, this weapon takes 6 shots to the body to kill a zombie on round 35 in Black Ops 4, but only takes a single shot to kill the same zombie to the head. It could be as simple as saying that the headshot is 6 times multiplier, but I think it's more than that. See, if you recall, the original Mark II has a 10 times multiplier and deals 21,600 damage per headshot. This would mean that a body shot does 2,160. Multiplied by 6, we see that it is greater than the round 35 health of 11,272. Now, I will say I could be wrong about this. See, in Black Ops 3 and earlier, the base Mark II was able to deal 100,000 damage to the head per shot when upgraded. It wasn't neutered until Black Ops 6, to my knowledge. So while yes, it might be doing a crap ton more to the head, basing my facts on the most recent Mark II, I have to say that these are the numbers that I believe they would use if they didn't already do so. Again, the code didn't exactly tell me much of anything for these variants, so it is my belief that these fully automatic ray guns actually have the same headshot multiplier as the base ray gun Mark II. This means that it also deals 21,600 damage per shot, or 0.432 kills. We can then take this value and apply it to both of our firing styles. The first style, shooting one at a time, gives us a W score of 7.699, and shooting both at the same time gives us a W score of 7.563. Very close, but in the end, shooting one at a time prevails. Now, does anyone have any clue what the X stands for? If it isn't for X-ray, then you've lost me. Wait, I got it. Xenophobia. What does that mean again? Well, let's say it's xenophobia. Oh no. Oh, maybe not. I take it back. Forget I said anything. Let's move on to the next one. Don't know how it took them potentially 26 letters to land on, but what if ray gun was shotgun? But I appreciate the American scientists getting there nevertheless. The ray gun Mark II-Z shoots pinkish purple blasts of laser-like goo. Specifically, 6 goo lasers are shot out in a wide spread that can shockingly hit 3 zombies with each shot. Even though these lasers can't penetrate, they somehow find a way to hit multiple zombies. Maybe it does have penetration and it's just shallow? I don't know. But because of this, we can actually use its full damage numbers instead of capping it at 1 zombie per shot. Similar to the X, the Z takes 2 body shots, or 12 bullets, or 1 headshot to kill a zombie at maximum health. In reality, I think it would require only 1 pellet from one of the shots to the head, or 7 pellets total to the body to kill a zombie at max health. This leads me to believe, once again, that each individual laser has the same headshot multiplier as the base zombie. This means that if all 6 pellets hit a zombie in the head, then our maximum potential damage per shot is 21,600 times 6, or 129,600 damage, or 2.592 kills. Again, this is basing it on the most recent Mark II and not the old Mark II. If I based it on the old Mark II, then this weapon would actually be doing an insane 600,000 damage per shot, having potentially the highest damage per shot of any weapon. Is it unrealistic that all 6 hit a zombie in the head? Absolutely. But isn't that the case for practically every weapon we've reviewed so far? Honestly, this probably isn't even the furthest stretch I've made for a weapon. Just look at the winner's howl. The long reload time of 4 seconds seems to be a trend for all of the Mark II variants, and the same with the high fire rates, because although this is a shotgun, it still manages to fire 5 blasts per second, rivaling many fully automatic shotguns like the Shoe Shining. I was quite surprised with how well this did, but at the end of the day, it's a shotgun going point blank into a zombie's head. I mean, I shouldn't be too surprised. Spreading our numbers out and blasting them together, we get a W score of 8.704. Ever so slightly above its twice-abaft brother, the X. Do you think I'll ever run out of random vocab words to use for this video, like abaft? I found that word today. Well, I sure hope I don't. We still got 2 more games after this. When this weapon hits the field, orange becomes the new black, as its blinding solar flare of an explosion blots out even the sun itself. The Y asks the question not of what would happen if you remove the identity of Mark II and replace it with a nuclear bomb, it instead asks, why the hell not? By sacrificing all of the identity of the Mark II's laser blast, we get a chargeable mini nuke launcher. Funnily enough, looking at the only code that we have for the Mark II-Y, we see that its stats are actually identical to the Helion Salvo. It deals an inner explosion damage of 10,000 and an outer damage of 7,000, combining to a total of 17,000 for the innermost zombies, or 10.88 kills when you hit an entire horde. However, this is where the similarities end between the two. Whereas the Helion can only fire 1.7 shots per second, the Y manages 2.368 a second, firing almost an entire another shot faster than the Helion Salvo. Now, this is where the 5 of you familiar with this weapon might go, now hang on, don't you have to charge the weapon? Well, turns out this charging function is pretty much cosmetic. You would think that holding down the trigger and charging up the weapon until it's shaking and overloading would do more damage, but it doesn't. All it does is increase the range of effect. But since the normal explosion shot can already hit an entire horde, there's literally no reason to sacrifice fire rate for a damage range that will never matter in these circumstances. Plus, it uses more ammo, so I really can't think of a circumstance where it's better to charge it up. So although it's basically the Helion Salvo in disguise, it manages to outperform it where it matters. Oh, the reload, right, I forgot about that. It reloads in 4 seconds like the others, whereas the Helion only takes 2.5. Well, I guess the Helion had to beat it in something. But all the other categories help it in the end, as this Helion Salvo poser of a Mark II-Y has a W score of 14.339, blasting slowly away from its template weapon.
Helion Salvo!
Mein Gott, diese Waffe, was haben Sie getan? Die Wunderwaffe? Scharfschütze? Funkenschütze? Nein, nein. Oh, but it is. Now that I've successfully butchered the German language, let me introduce you to the Wunderwaffe's successor. The Wunderwaffe, but with a scope. Or the Wunderwaffe combined with the Scavenger, depending on how you look at it. So many people were disappointed with this weapon. It doesn't seem to kill instantly like the original, and when it does, it's quite slow. The scope seems pointless since the best way to use it is seemingly just spamming it into a horde until everything dies. But that's because most of the player base can't read, let alone read German. Otherwise, when they look a little further, they could realize that Scharfschütze looks a lot like the word sharpshooter, which would then clue you into how exactly to best use this superior version of the Wunderwaffe. See, to the body, it can still chain lightning, but not a lot. The real benefit of this weapon is when you can hit a zombie in the head. This causes a chain reaction that instantaneously kills the zombie shot and chains lightning into 10 nearby zombies quicker than even the original Wunderwaffe can. In only a single second, the zombies nearby go from electrocuted to dead in the icy depths. I will say that there seems to be a max damage variable set to 20,000, but from what little I can tell, this only applies during body shots. I could be wrong, as I was sifting through this code at 3 in the morning, ready to go to sleep, so forgive me if I'm wrong on that. But the functions that I can find all point to zombie health plus 666 being the damage these zombies receive when the initial zombie gets hit in the head. But when hit in the body, it gets a little gray, so hence why I think it might be 20,000 wins to the body. But, you know, since I don't care about the body shot, I'm not going to worry about it. This weapon can shoot an astonishing 5 shots a second, lightning fast for a sniper rifle, and outpacing the original without any effort. And even its reload is significantly shorter at only 3 seconds. It may sting you to hear, but this form of the Wunderwaffe is simply superior than the original in every way, unless you don't have good aim. In which case, skill issue, I don't know. Zapping our numbers together, we get a W score of 20.332, literally miles above what the original received. Apparently having a little scope does matter. Anyway, weiter geht's. As if we weren't already making blasphemous statements from the beginning and making ridiculous changes no one asked for to idolized and iconic weapons, we put a rocket-propelled snowball into the Thunder Gun because, I mean, like, why not? The main drawback of this weapon is its splash damage, but we don't care about that, so what are we left with? Other than being able to anger fans and make explosive Frosty the Snowmans, the Tundra Gun is actually shockingly identical to its father gun, the Thunder Gun. Also reloading in 4 seconds, also obliterating instantly, and also firing at 2 shots a second, the Tundra Gun can even kill an entire horde if its RPS, Rocket Propelled Snowball, is aimed truly. This weapon copies so much that even its upgraded name, Vods Blizzard, is just a play on the Windstaff Vods' Fury. So which is it? Is Vods more cold and more windy? Did they run out of wind and ice gods for this weapon? And why did it also have to be Greek in origin, like the Zeus cannon? Hell, name it Kione's Blizzard, so it's at least not copying a deity from a previous weapon. Well, my own personal frustration and its design aside, I get to frustrate fans more by telling you that since this weapon is only in Togdertoten, it gets a better W score than the Thunder Gun at 31.168. Love it or hate it, it's still more unique than the Thunder Gun at this point. Stupid snowball launcher. But with that, we finish Black Ops 4 and exit what I call the old age of zombies, and enter an age of zombies colder and less passionate, but still fun nevertheless. I swear, I truly thought we were nearing the end of this video, but then I saw just how many variant or elemental wonder weapons we have left, and I might explode if I see another fire this, ice that, or electric something. Ugh. And to make matters worse, this one has 5 variants, including its base form, and not a single one of them is straightforward. Okay. Back up. Brave face. Our first new wonder weapon in Cold War Zombies, or Black Ops 5, is the poster child of Project End Station, the Decompressive Isotopic Estrangement Machine, or DIE or DIE for short. As with all other weapons with different forms, we will be reviewing them in order of least best to most best. Starting with what should come to no surprise, the DIE Cryo Emitter, or when upgraded known as the DEAD or Dead Glaciator. Glaciator, I think. Glaciator? I don't know. Now, what does dead stand for? Who knows? It's probably cosmetic. But if you want my best guess, I'll say Decompressive Estrangement Automatic Disassembler Machine. There you go. But this weapon is, I'll put it nicely, bad. It does 4,000 damage every single bit of ammo used with 0 penetration whatsoever, equaling to 0.08 kills per second. It fires at 6 ammo per second, thankfully. Otherwise, this weapon would be tragically underpowered, a theme that you're going to notice with all of these weapons. Another thing that you're going to notice is that they have 0 reload time, and that this weapon is actually one of the few ice weapons to have 0 delay between shooting and damaging. Putting it all together, we get a W score of 3.48. But we're not actually done. See, all of the dies will need to utilize their alternate fire in some way. See, these jet gun ripoffs technically have infinite ammo, but they need to utilize their alternate fire to do so. Now, you might just say, well, buy more ammo. That's what we said in the intro. Except, these guns purposefully have very low ammo capacities in every single one of their forms. You won't get nearly enough points to replenish your ammo every single time it runs out, almost by design, thus forcing you to use the alternate fire to get ammo. But don't worry, the secondary fire is actually better than the die freeze. Pay attention because I'm only saying these numbers once for all forms of the die. It has no reload time, and no time between firing and damage obviously, and it seems to deal 3.5 sucks per second. It's hard to tell due to the no ammo thing, but it's what I could tell from looking at footage. For whatever reason, the die deals very specifically 14.75% of their health and damage. I know this because I used a ruler to measure it, and it can hit at most 3 zombies at once with a single suck. This totals to 0.4425 kills in a single suck. Sucking it all together, and getting tired of the word suck yet, we get a W score of 4.55 for just the secondary fire. We can then average this with the primary ice dice score of 3.48 to get an actual W score of 4.015, placing it just below the storm bow and its fellow disappointing elemental wonder weapon, the Kraken. Or the Medusa head, as we said earlier. Growing from the power of an insect zapper to a bolt of lightning in 3 seconds flat, the Die Electrobolt is one of the few lightning weapons in the series to not chain lightning together when it's shot. However, what it does do is have a slow creep from low damage to higher and higher. Because no wonder weapon could be straightforward, the Die Electrobolt, or when upgraded, the Dead Jolt Surge, starts off at only dealing 2,000 damage per ammo used. Luckily for it, the weapon fires at 12 shots per second, meaning a mediocre 24,000 damage is dealt in 1 second with no penetration damage whatsoever. However, once this first second is over, the damage then cranks up to 6,000 for the next 12 shots. Then, once more after another second, the damage finally maxes out at 15,000 damage per shot, a not insignificant amount, especially considering it can crank out 12 of these a second. So, in order to calculate the damage score for this weapon, we need to get an average once again. Much like the gauntlets of Ouranos and Hemera, this weapon's trigger can be held down until it is completely empty in order to maximize its damage output. The weapon starts at 600 ammo when fully upgraded, meaning that this weapon can fire for 50 seconds non-stop. We can then calculate a very simple summation function where we total the W score of every single second and then divide it by the 50-second duration in order to get our average W score for this weapon. So, for the first second, we take our 24,000 damage per second, 0 reload time, and time between fired and killed of 0 to get a W score of 3.48. Repeating this for our 1.44 kills per second from the second, we get a score of 4.44. Finally, we repeat this with our 3.6 kills per second from the last second, and we get a W score of 6.6. Did I say second enough yet? Second. We can then perform the summation function I stated earlier, where we add 3.48 with 4.44 with 48 times 6.6, since 48 seconds will have a W score of 6.6. Dividing this total by the 50 seconds of electricity, we get a W score of 6.494. But I'm still not done with this thing. Oh god. We still have to account for the time after the ammo runs out, aka the alternate fire. Averaging the 6.494 score with the 4.55 score of the alternate fire, we get a W score of 4.522. The actual W score of this weapon, placing it just below the Magmagat. The only version of the die that can actually pierce and hit more than one zombie, the Die Thermophasic, or the Dead Immolator, as it's known when upgraded, is a surprisingly solid damaging wonder weapon. From what I can tell, it can hit at most 10 zombies in a single shot, and since the numerical damage increases with the round and they always die from it, I think I can safely say that this weapon does damage equivalent to the zombie's maximum health. So a nice clean 10 zombies per shot if you aim it well. Unfortunately, this is slowed down by the fact that it can only fire one of these shots a second, and due to the charge up animation, this weapon has half a second wait before damage starts actually accumulating. Melting our numbers together, we get a W score of 9.667, and when accounting for a secondary fire, we get an actual W score of 7.1085, placing it just behind the zap guns. This is always my problem with multiform wonder weapons. It's hard to come up with a witty joke at the end of each section when the weapons are so similar to one another. I'm a dad, like the most I can say is that the competition has truly heated up, sport, or something. Smelling like my son after he refused to take a bath on a hot summer day eating nothing but hot dogs, the Die Nova 5, or the Dead Virulence, is the best of the variants of the base Die Wonder Weapon. Shooting the ground leaves behind a fart cloud of damage, dealing 4,500 damage every third of a second exposed to the gas. Things get a little complicated from here because the Chipotle cloud lasts for 10 seconds. This means that by the time the cloud dissipates, it deals a total of 135,000 damage for one zombie technically, if you're, somehow able to keep them all within the cloud for its entire duration. But I think this is unrealistic due to how small the gas cloud actually is. So despite what the numbers actually say for this one, I'm making an executive decision and saying it can kill one horde due to just how small it is. This gas damage can also stack with other gas clouds, meaning that the fire rate doesn't actually have to wait for the previous cloud to leave. The fire rate isn't great, as our Colon Creature Crusher can only flatulate a single cloud per second. Pulling my finger, we can see that our W score is a hazardous 35. Taking into account the secondary fire as well, we get an actual deflatulated W score of 19.775, placing it just behind the wave gun. What? Why are you still here? Oh yeah, I did say that those were in order from worst to best, didn't I? Yeah, well, turns out when I redid my math, I was completely off on this weapon. So we're moving on.
Weapons like these will change the world.
Die Maschine was a soft reboot for the Zombies franchise. A way to uncomplicate things, yet put a fresh coat of paint on remnants of the old. This is evident by literally putting a new coat of paint on the original Zombies map, Nocturne, and creating a better version of the jet gun. Until Big Balls Black Ops 6 showed up. The Die was a welcome weapon with a cool accordion-like design that had very easy elemental upgrade quests to show you the awesome capabilities of this weapon. However, much like the intel in this game, these upgrades were proven pointless. Why have a lesser form of storytelling when the original was done perfectly? Why have a lesser form of weaponry when the original was perfected? The Die Shockwave, or when upgraded, the Dead Thunderblast, is so much better than its counterparts that it literally has a W score almost greater than all of the other ones combined. Spoilers, in a single shot, a concussive blast in ball form is shot out, decimating all zombies in its path, dealing 30,000 damage. Multiplying this by a full horde of 32 gives us a total damage of 960,000 or 19.2 kills. But the crazy part about this is that it even fires faster than its so-called upgraded variants at 1.132 shots per second. Multiplying these amounts together and adding a nice 3 in there for uniqueness, we get a W score of 24.734. However, accounting for the right click, it actually brings the score back down to earth to a very reasonable 14.642. Just barely being able to surpass the Void Bow, this weapon is far from flashy. It has inspirations from previous weapons written all over it, and yet it still finds a way to be one of the best. Truly a great representation of Cold War zombies. Yeah, I said it, I think Cold War zombies is good. Боже мой, какая красота! Reaktorni Automat Izluchatel Kulkle 84. Sorry, I had to butcher more than just one language in this video. I gotta offend as many people as I can. The Soviet-made and Omega Group pioneered Ray K-84, or Discordian Disruptor as it's known when upgraded, is a modified AK-47 with an underbarrel grenade launcher attachment. Though that is very much oversimplifying things. Found in a Soviet-backed Vietnamese facility, the Ray K is best utilized by firing using its grenade launcher attachment first to unleash a slow-affecting, pulsating ring of energy inspired by the Ray Gun Mark III. On its own, it doesn't do much, but by firing into the eye of the ring, we can overload its energy and completely obliterate any and all zombies within its area of effect. This explosion deals a massive 60,000 damage and can easily hit every single zombie in a horde, guaranteeing 32 kills in a single burst of damage. Now, I'm going to be cheating a little with this weapon because I'm counting the entire combo of shooting out an energy blast and then making it explode as a single shot, since that is the best way to use this weapon, and it's basically a charged shot. You just have to fire multiple bullets for it. Accounting for this, we lower the fire rate to one shot every 2.5 seconds, since ideally this is how long it'll take to make it explode. Once it does explode, the damage is instantaneous. It just unfortunately takes a long time to do. Once completing this combo, you unfortunately will need to eventually reload, which takes a lengthy but not impossible long duration of 2.8 seconds. Placing these numbers all together, we get a W score of 11.562, placing it just above the jet gun. There's really nothing too special about the Ray K from its design to its killing ability, but can I just say there's something very satisfying about shooting into the ring, getting it to explode with the last bullet in your clip, and seeing all of the zombies ragdoll away in every direction. It may not be the best or the most powerful weapon, but it sure can be fun as hell to use. Don't worry, I don't have the same sentiments for Firebase Z. The map is still mid as hell. I just like the weapon. AI is the future of everything. Apparently, that includes guns. I knew that the Internet of Things age was going to cause problems, and they laughed at me for my analog toaster. The baby of Team Requiem, the conversion-ready binary repeater standard, or Cerberus for short, is a weapon that somehow succeeds at looking even more comic book-esque than even the wave gun. Challenging no man's land, the Cerberus is a weapon created to settle the Cold War and adapt to any situation it needs to. As a cornerstone piece to the best zombies map in Cold War Zombies, we start with the worst form of it, the base form. Saying worst is kind of harsh, but it's just objectively true. The Cerberus, when upgraded to the Cybertron Duality, has the highest rate of fire of the four forms at 5.195. But also has, unfortunately, the lowest damage of any of the forms at 11,250 per headshot and 7,500 damage to the body. This distinction needs to be made clear because the weapon actually fires two lasers every shot, one from the gun and one from the impossible AI ball floating around it. These lasers are never both headshots. Despite numerous testing, even when I was basically aiming inside of a zombie's head, one of the two shots was not a headshot. Therefore, this means that every shot does 18,750 damage, which is equivalent to 0.375 kills per shot. Thankfully, there's not a delay between firing and damage, however. Also, for all forms of the Cerberus, despite all looking very different from one another, they all share a reload time of 2.5 seconds, which is pretty interesting. Also, if you're wondering why everyone says the base form is the best, yeah, I'm calling it the worst now. That's because Cold War has just a little ability known as the Ring of Fire. See, Ring of Fire kind of flips everything on its head because with it, all you care about is the rate of fire. Ring of Fire kind of makes every weapon impossibly strong, so you'd want an already decently strong weapon with a very high fire rate. Case in point, the base Cerberus being known as the strongest by the fandom, even its base stats say otherwise.
Piecing it all together, we get a W score of 4.414, placing it just above the Fire Kraken. The Kraken sure has a lot of ops in this video, me included.
Adding a weird muzzle attachment to the barrel of the Cerberus, we were able to change its capabilities from that of a machine pistol to that of a purely horizontal spreading shotgun. This form of the weapon, much like the Ray Gun Mark IIX, becomes a shotgun, firing 5 bullets in a spread. However, for whatever reason, this spread is only on the X-axis, meaning that you'll have to fire it very close to get the most out of it. I'm talking like gun in mouth kind of close. Each individual pellet deals 13,500 damage to the head with 0 penetration. Multiplying this by 5, we get a damage stat of 67,500, giving it the highest base damage per bullet of any of the Cerberus forms, totaling to 1.35 kills per burst. However, this is balanced with the second lowest fire rate at 2 bursts per second, which is still faster than I initially thought, as firing this weapon just feels so clunky and slow. There's 0 delay between when you fire and when the zombie takes damage, but I just hate how this weapon feels. There's something off about using it that doesn't feel particularly fun or rewarding to use like most other wonder weapons. Like, if you like the form the most, I don't dislike you, but like, why? Well, let's diffuse the situation by giving you what you're here for. This weapon has a W score of 4.959, ever so slightly better than the base Cerberus. It may be known as the Cybertron Quintessence, but it is far from the quintessential Cerberus form, and honestly, it isn't even my least favorite form to use.
Cerberus.
Diffuser.
The worst damage of the crew, the second worst fire rate of the crew, and the worst to handle of the crew. It's like your friend that you keep out of a separate group chat without them knowing. And if you don't think that group chat exists, you might be that friend. They don't mean it in a bad way necessarily, though they might. It's just that they don't really click with you as much as everyone else. That's the Cerberus Swarm, or the Cybertron Seeker. With only an average of 9,000 damage dealt to a zombie, the Swarm is very disappointing and not worth the annoyance you have to put up with to use it. Adding a huge rotating cylinder to the barrel Cerberus changes it to a bulky explosive pistol. That may sound cool and all, we do love the Mustang and Sally, but just how it fires in a weird spiral formation makes it kind of hard to aim. The point of the weapon is to lock onto an enemy and then hit them directly with a small payload of artillery, but that is extremely slow. And it feels much better to just aim at the ground and hit as many zombies as possible. In fact, using it this way is the only way it stands above the previous two forms. It may only deal 9,000 damage, but it can hit, from what I can tell, 25 zombies, bringing its total damage to 225,000 damage or 4.5 kills per shot. The fire rate is interesting because, against your will, this weapon fires 2 bursts back to back. This means you will always fire 2 shots. I'm still counting them separately, as it still makes more sense to do it this way. This means that the rate of fire is 4 shots every 1.5 seconds, or 2.667 shots per second, which makes sense given how that it can shoot 2 shots. Buzzing onto the scene with a W score of 5.449, the Swarm is just right behind its die cousin,
Swarm.
Now, here's where things get crazy. Adding what is essentially another entire weapon to the end of the base Cerberus, we get a 2-handed assault rifle style fully automatic laser cutter. Like all of the other variants, it is very awkward to handle. But if you can handle it right, oh boy, it'll treat you well. It's the only variant with a delay between shot and kill, but this is thankfully only 10 frames, like most melee weapons. What is most shocking about this weapon, though, is that it seems to take the best attributes from all of the other variants, culminating in a score better than all of the other forms combined. It takes the base damage of the Diffuser, 13,500 damage per headshot, the fire rate of the base form at 5.195 shots per second, and the ability to hit more than one zombie that the Swarm has. The Blazer, or the Cybertron Enlightenment, is truly the only form to actually live up to its name. Realistically, yet optimally, this weapon can penetrate and hit 8 zombies in the head with the full 13,500 damage, which is already a respectable 2.16 kills. But like the Buddha, it was destined for more. It wanted to be more than a copy of all of its cohorts. It wanted to add its own flair. And perhaps the most unique firing effect that doesn't outright summon an entity, the Blazer hits a zombie 3 times for every shot fired. And these 3 times all do the same damage as that first shot from what I can tell. Now, I may be wrong because I didn't get to a high round to test this and only observed this when I was shooting the Disciple Specialist zombie. So, it might be that this triple shot effect only applies to the boss zombies, or that I'm just not seeing it right. And if that's the case, then the W score is 9.978. Still a good job, but if it does hit 3 times like I observed, then the W score skyrocketed to 23.934, a score rivaling those of the unrealistic Sliquifier and the extra-dimensional Void Bow. Overall, the Cerberus is a mixed bag of awkward feeling yet mostly consistent wonder weapons that really deserves to be known as the poster child for one of the most awkward yet consistent zombies games, Cold War. It may not be remembered fondly, but Cold War did reignite my passion for zombies after the Vanguard drought, so I'll always appreciate it for that. But we're not out of the woods yet. Still got one more map to cover.
Blazer.
Representing our boogeyman in the current zombie story, the Dark Ether, the Chrysalax jumps into the final map in order to give us a taste of the power that the Dark Ether has to offer. Combining two weapon types that have absolutely nothing in common, a submachine gun and a melee weapon, the purple crystal morphed into the shape of a gun is equally badass looking and satisfying to swing. Unfortunately, its submachine gun form, the Storm, is not nearly as satisfying. With the deadly efficiency of a Nerf dart, a crystal loaded into the weapon is shredded down to be used as ammo similar to the Needler from the Halo series. However, unlike the Needler, there's no powerful explosion rewarding our efforts and instead only 8,400 damage to the head with the ability to maybe hit 2 zombies at once, although I might have just been having Element 115 based delusions. I swear I saw it hit 2 zombies at the same time with 1 shot. This equals to 0.336 kills per shot, which is made up for with its Gatling Nerf gun rate of 12.72 shots per second. It's definitely fast, I'll give it that. With a reload time of 2.5 seconds, the weapon itself is actually more than just decent. It just really feels like a pea shooter and not the otherworldly creation it's supposed to be, especially when compared to its other form. Totaling the score together, we get a W score of 6.102. When upgraded to the Tenebris Cormeum, or My Dark Heart, we get an image showing us that this weapon is truly the heart and soul of the Dark Ether, especially combined with its alternate form's upgraded form.
Oh yeah.
I could cut you all without hesitation.
Tenebris Anima, or the Soul of Darkness. This is the cool twin brother of the Chrysalax Storm. It's a two-handed axe made of complete Ethereum with a dark black and purple hue swimming throughout it. It is able to swing 1.818 times a second with a 0.333 second delay once you start swinging. Turns out swinging a two-handed axe made of pure rock is kind of a slow process. Each swing, however, deals 37,500 damage and has the capability of hitting 3 zombies at once, equaling to 2.25 kills per swing. Overall, it may not seem very powerful for being a supposed part of the Forsaken, but this is because the axe actually has a powerful spell attached to it. An alternate fire that allows you to summon a spinning shadow of the axe itself, blending all of the zombies that run into its path. This alternate fire can be held down so that the blender remains in place, being able to eviscerate an entire horde with its 30,000 damage every half a second potential. This means that the right click alone has the potential to kill an entire horde every second for 10 seconds. The best part is that the normal Chrysalax can still be swung while this alternate fire is out blending the hordes. The right click alone gets an insane W score of 25.6. However, there's a caveat. This insane wonder weapon simply cannot exist on its own. The right click has a major drawback, and I do mean major. It can only be charged by using the mediocre Chrysalax Storm, creating this sort of symbiotic relationship between the two forms, since to use the full axe potential, you have to use that submachine gun. It's really hard to tell how much you need to use the Storm in order to charge up the Ravager's magic spell, but I think a fair measurement is dividing its W score by 5 and adding it to the normal Chrysalax's W score, since the amount of time it takes to charge the alternate fire is very long. This means that our calculated W score for the primary fire of the axe is 6.069, and can be added to the W score of the alternate fire, 25.6 divided by 5, or 5.12, to get an actual complicated W score of 11.189. This is a pretty good score for the wonder weapon, but an actually amazing score for a weapon primarily used for meleeing. Honestly, out of all of the complicated scoring for all of the wonder weapons, this one is the most I'm actually unsure about. See, I couldn't figure out how long it takes to charge the right click or alternate fire, and I hope that the number I finalized on is the correct one. If there's anyone who finds more exact numbers for me, I'd appreciate it, and I'll leave info in a pinned comment if I discover anything new about this or any of the other weapons. With that, we finish off Cold War Zombies with some really great wonder weapons and some really mediocre ones. But honestly, nothing bad, which is a huge W for Cold War. Now, after a couple of hours, we finally enter the modern age of zombies. Black Ops 6. I hope you're still awakened with me. Finally, we arrive to the modern age of zombies. Very controversial with its, AI shenanigans, but I still think a decent zombie game compared to all of the others. We arrive at the current ongoing zombies game, Black Ops 6. Seemingly utilizing the power of the undead itself against them, the DRI-11 Beam Smasher offers a 1-2 punch combo to completely disorient and decimate hordes of the undead. With a single tap of the alternate fire, a satellite dish pops out of the weapon, releasing a supersonic wave, leaving the zombies especially vulnerable to headshot damage. Appearing only in Dr. Modi's island facility of Terminus, the Beam Smasher knows how to take advantage of an opportunity, much like its creator. Looking to make a name for Black Ops 6, the Beam Smasher provides a decent chunk of damage at 14,880 every shot to the head. It even has the ability to pierce, seemingly, up to 4 zombies at once, totaling to 1.19 kills per shot. With a fire rate of 10.435 shots per second, it has no trouble whatsoever at dealing opportune damage quickly and efficiently into an entire horde. Its main drawbacks come in the form of wait time. See, when it runs out of ammo, it releases a concussive blast that deals minimum damage, hence why I'm not including it in calculations, but knocks all nearby zombies to the ground. Useful in giving you time to reload, if not for the fact that the reload takes a lengthy 4.5 seconds. Unsure why it takes just as long to take a vial out and put a new one in as it does to change 3 light bulbs on the Wunderwaffe, but whatever. This isn't the only wait time needed for the weapon though, because as I said before, the weapon is an opportunistic weapon that requires a quick tap of the alternate fire in order to maximize damage potential. This thankfully only takes 0.9 seconds to tap it and then swap to normal firing, but this is still time that needs to be taken into account. Despite not being the strongest, this weapon still has the capabilities to destroy Baby Cthulhu themselves and have an average W score of 5.313. Placing it just behind the Paralyzer. This weapon proves the idea that although it is far from the best wonder weapon, any wonder weapon is preferred and has the potential for mass devastation. Also, damn, how many times have I used the Paralyzer as a benchmark of comparison? Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. For centuries, the people of Hyrule hear whispers of a legend. A legend that one day, a young hero will rise up to defeat the evil wind spirit Vati using the legendary Four Sword, splitting him into 4 clones of himself. Whispers of the name Link traveled throughout the land. Prayers to the goddesses were aplenty, praying for Princess Zelda's return from the grasp of these evil zombies. Wait. Zombies? Zombies. Apparently I've been reading the wrong legend. Okay. Okay. Here it is. Here's the real one. Guy de Saint Michel hated his bastard sons. So he gave them swords to prove themselves, but they all died. The end. Huh. Not a good legend. I'm glad I started with the other one. Well, regardless, the 4 swords of Citadel de Mort are such cool wonder weapons that a step of the Easter egg literally involves aura farming in front of the statues. These 4 are nearly identical with one another, but differ in only one way: their charge attacks. These are the only things that separate one from another, as they all do not need to reload, have a half-second swing animation, and can swing a rapid 1.65 times a second. Each sword will need to be reviewed in order of worst to best efficiency with their charged attacks. And first comes a sword that the gallant and courageous hero in green would prefer, Solias. Solias is the worst of the 4 swords for only one reason. It has the best charge attack. Now, how does that make any sense? Well, the developers realized that having a charge attack that makes you completely invulnerable to zombie hits and vaporize those touching you, similar to the chakrams from Black Ops 4, was a bit powerful. So they balanced it by requiring you to get 40 kills to charge up this attack. Like all of the swords, it can kill 2 zombies with a single swing regardless of the round, but that still means 20 swings are optimally needed before you can unleash a charged attack that, yes, vaporizes a horde, but like the others, is so short that it can only vaporize one horde. So now that we know how many kills it takes to charge the attack, how do we calculate the kills per swing? Well, what we do is take the kills acquired per swing, 2, and divide it by the kills to charge, in this case 40. We then get a ratio of swing to charge, indicating essentially how much charge you get with every swing of the sword that kills 2 zombies. Multiplying this by the number of zombies killed by the charge attack, we get the potential number of kills acquired with each swing of the weapon. Hope that makes sense. So 2 divided by 40 is 0.05, multiplied by 32, the horde size, equals 1.6. We then add the initial 2 zombies killed by the swing itself, and we get a potential of 3.6 kills per swing. Lighting the way for the rest of the swords, the Prideful Lion gets a W score of 6.96. Incredible for a melee weapon, and placing it above the Ice Staff in its killing efficiency. Fun fact, each sword actually matches an element to each of the bows from Dreisendrache if you count the wolf as being light, like I do. And if we're comparing the swords to the bows, well, the lion sword kinda never stood a chance. I guess archery is superior, guys. Wrap it up. We've answered the age-old question. Calm and serene, the forest welcomes all those who enter its warm embrace. Protected by the spirit of the forest, the gentle stag, the forest knows not evil nor good, only life. Yet, as life does, if it is harmed or betrayed, the stag will lash out in ecstatic shock, bearing its fierce antlers towards the wicked and ill-intentioned. The sword preferred by the quick to both action and anger hero of blue strikes with a bolt of lightning channeled through the sword itself. The only sword of the 4 that has any difficulty killing an entire horde, Durandal takes 25 kills to charge up its blasting bolt. Putting it into our killing formula introduced earlier, we get a killing potential of 4.56 kills per swing. Perhaps not the most fantastical of the swords, it is still very reliable, and perhaps the most reliable against the special and elite zombies of the map. Flashing into place, the anticipative stag gets a W score of 8.016, placing it very middle of the herd. Honestly, not much else I can say about Durandal, so what I will say is that all of the swords actually get bonus charge for killing special and elite zombies. So, if you're like me, not paying attention, you may get your charge attack faster than you expected. That's due to this bonus charge you get for killing special or elite zombies. Really useful and cool for gameplay, but not cool for me trying to get exact numbers. And since I'm talking about stats, I want to say that all of these Black Ops 6 weapons could change in the future. Since this is the current zombies game, as I'm making the video, some or all of these stats could change in the future. It's already happened once to the swords, it could happen again. So if these weapons' information is outdated, that's why. With a pensive disposition and a piercing gaze, the raven veers down from its perch with a swirling purple hue, the only splash of color in its void of an eye. With a single screech from his beak the impossible void manifests itself, swallowing all of those unfortunate enough to be nearby. Much like the core of a demon, merely seeing its blinding abyss means it is too late for you. Send your prayers quickly before you return to the darkness. The sword of choice for the scheming and clever hero of Violet, Balamung strikes with an edge so sharp it can tear through the fabric of reality itself. Acting identically to the Casimir grenades, the summoned black hole forces all zombies down into its inky depths, exploding their bodies in a rush of gore before disappearing as quickly as it appeared. Using the power of shadows, Balamung easily clears an entire horde of the undead, but is unlikely to do more due to the Terran reality only being present for 5 seconds. Much like its twin resident of the forest, Durandal, Balamung only takes 25 kills before it can summon a new gateway to the Dark Ether. The only reason I placed this weapon higher than its twin is due to the fact that it more easily kills an entire horde and simply has a more lethal elemental effect. Speaking of, when the swords are charged, they can deal elemental damage. These are not included in their individual killing stats because it is ideal to use their charge attack the moment you acquire them, not hold on to them. Regardless, the Cunning Raven gets a W score of 8.016, identical to its brother, the Stag. I don't know why, but the imagery of the Raven perched on the Stag's antlers as they defeat the lion goes hard. Yet, none can defeat the sheer might of the dragon. Upon its hoard of gold, the dragon stares with blatant curiosity and wisdom matching and perhaps surpassing that of humans themselves. Its ravenous appetite for knowledge and hordes of wealth lead it down a path of fierce battle it faces with a confident and toothy smirk. Within an instant, a cremating breath of fire is blown across the battlefield, blinding everyone, including the dragon, for a single instant before the smoke clears and not a single living being remains. The sword of choice for the dependable and optimistic hero of Red, Caliburn, incinerates with the power of the sun. A power so unwieldy that it may even harm the user itself if they are not careful. Uncaring for dealing burn damage, the Caliburn chooses to instead vaporize the opposition with explosive force, easily obliterating an entire horde. For whatever reason, the Caliburn charges near effortlessly, only taking 20 kills before being able to unleash its fiery storm once more. Overall, the opportunistic dragon gets a W score of 8.72, only slightly higher than the previous two, but enough that it matters. The battle between the three will always be close, but the dragon will always reign supreme. Now, before we move on from the swords, I want to make something clear. I know that Balamung and Solias deal infinite damage with their charge shots. There is no doubt in my mind on that. However, Durandal and Caliburn, I don't know. I didn't go to round 55 with both of them due to a lack of time for this video, so I'm unsure of their complete killing capabilities. I want to say that they both do infinite damage, as it would be unfair, but as we've seen with other 4 paired elemental weapons, they're not always created equally. So, if you know that I'm wrong, and these two cannot kill at any round with their charge shot, please let me know. I'll gladly correct myself because strangers on the internet tell me to. Callback to a callback. Nothing against the Raygun Mark II. I love the Shattered Veil, and its Raygun Mark II variants are pretty cool too. I think they're well designed and super fun to use, but like, did it have to be Raygun Mark II variants again? Couldn't it have just been like base Raygun variants, or I don't know, a unique wonder weapon? Whatever. Continuing our alphabet soup journey, the Raygun Mark II jumps onto the scene with the power to slay a T-Rex. We are in the home stretch now, people, starting with the worst form of the new Raygun Mark II, the Mark II Preservation. Essentially a worse version of the Mark II Z, the P is another shotgun type Mark II. So, ignore my joke earlier that I took 26 letters to land on a shotgun version. Apparently they figured it out 16 in, but didn't improve it until 10 later. This variant only fires 2.586 times a second, has no penetration damage, and only deals 9,450 damage per pellet to the head. It seems to have lost its damage multiplier that the Z benefits from. It's very unfortunate. It does, however, just like the Z, shoot 6 pellets at a time, releasing a total of 56,700 damage or 1.134 kills. The only functionality difference between the Z, and honestly the only reason you'd use this variant, is for the invincibility zone it grants. But even this is short and is unable to be accounted for in my equation. However, it does set the precedence for all of these forms because for whatever reason, all 3 of these new Mark IIs summon an entity of some sort. Which means, yes, hooray, more complicated math for me. But the P, like all the other forms, has a reload time of 4 seconds and a 0-second delay for damage. It's far from the worst Mark II, but honestly, if you have to choose between the original and this one, there's really no reason to choose this. In order to preserve my sanity, we're just going to move on quickly and say that this weapon has a W score of 4.291. On to the next. Just to really tease the people who enjoyed Black Ops 4, the Mark IIW refers to the fan-favorite equipment of the Wraithfire. This blue flame equipment dealt a seemingly infinite amount of damage via its pools of holy flames. This does not do that. Merely a semblance of the power the equipment held, the Mark IIW has a small chance to summon a puddle of fire that lasts for 3 seconds whenever a zombie is shot. More than one puddle cannot exist simultaneously, so for argument's sake, we will just say that every 3 seconds a new puddle appears. So, for our calculations, we will need to figure out our fire rate first, because in order to get the fire damage per shot, we need to figure out how many shots per second. Thankfully, this stat is straightforward at a high 6.74 shots per second. Now that we know this, we just need to divide the total fire damage dealt by 6.74 times 3. This will give us our total potential fire damage per shot. So, how much does it do? 2,125 per tick. That's it, unfortunately. Higher than some other burn damage, but still not a lot. It does, however, hit a zombie twice, but the fire is only around for such a short amount of time that it can only realistically and optimally hit half a horde, even at their top speed. This means that the total damage is 2,125 times 2 times 16, which equals to 68,000. But we then have to divide this by the number we got earlier, 6.74 times 3, to get our fire damage per shot, which is equivalent to 3,363.007. But that's just the residual fire damage. The actual laser does 17,212 damage to the head every shot, and has the ability to penetrate and hit 3 zombies total. Therefore, our total damage per shot is 3,363.007 plus 17,212 times 3, which equals to 54,999.007. Or 1.1 kills, because, I mean, it's literally just 55,000. Putting this together, our little inflammation sensation has a W score of 3.263. Now hang on, I know I said that the P was worse, but that was before I realized I'm dumb. And I got the math wrong again. The Mark IIs are actually the death of me, I guess. I'm just glad I caught them both. See, I forgot to divide by the fire rate times 3, initially making the damage per shot much bigger than it actually is. So, unfortunately for both me and the Mark IIW, it is much worse than I initially thought. Sucks to suck, I guess. For both of us. You know, I don't know how the preservation fits into my theory, but I think the Shattered Veil variants all refer to something from Black Ops 4. Again, like I said, I don't know how the preservation fits into this, so this could just be a crackpot theory, but the W is obviously the Wraithfire, and now the R stands for Rot Blight, which is very similar to the famous, yet also simultaneously infamous, elite zombie, the Blight Father from Black Ops 4. Unlike the Blightfather, the Rot Blight takes after the die Nova 5 more than anything else. Similar to it, shooting this weapon summons Kimchi from Chowder, who deals residual damage to an entire horde that runs through it. Unlike the Nova 5, this weapon cannot spawn more than one Methane Madness at once, and instead has to wait until the 20-second flatulence dissipates. Now, this gas is actually kind of insane, all jokes aside. See, every half a second that a zombie's in the gas, they take 6,650 damage. This means that in total, it'll take 5 seconds to kill an entire horde via only the gas. This means that ideally, the gas itself can kill 4 hordes in 20 seconds. This is extremely impressive, but we have to break this down once again in terms of a single shot using the same formula that the Wraithfire used. So first we see that the Mark II is much slower at only 2 shots per second. Thankfully, this makes the math much easier. We simply have to take the 4 hordes of zombies killed and divide it by the 20-second cooldown, and then divide it again by the 2 shots per second. This gives us 3.2 kills via gas per shot. But this is only the gas. This gun also has a huge headshot multiplier, greater than even the base Mark II. It's able to do a zombie's entire health, greater than 50,000, meaning each shot will get 1 kill. Except it can actually also penetrate seemingly up to 3 zombies. This means that the actual potential number of kills per shot is 3 plus 3.2, or 6.2 zombies per shot. This equals to a W score of 5.458, making it the best of the new variants, but showing that the base Mark II is kinda still king, at least when looking at the raw stats. So, if you're following along since the very beginning, here's the order of effectiveness for each Mark II. It goes Mark II V, then there is P, W, then base Mark II, X, then R, then there is Z, finally there is Y. This was cringe, let's stop this now. Please, oh god, why did I do this? Hooray! Sorry for my bad singing. I've been singing the alphabet a lot with my son, so it felt appropriate. Now, if you're paying especially close attention, you should see that the Alpha Omega variants are not only actually better than the base Mark II, but they are vastly superior to the new Shattered Veil variants. Minus the V, he's weird, don't talk about him. Don't even look directly at him. So suck it, Shattered Veil. There's the one and only thing Alpha Omega did better than you. Now, that said, I mean, they might be hella nerfed if they ever came back. I doubt they ever will, but, you know. But for now, suck it. So, I am far from perfect. It took until this final weapon coming out for me to realize my horde size has been wrong the whole time. It is actually 40 in Black Ops 6. I'm sure I have a comment or something clarifying this, and I'm sure there's a plethora of other things wrong in this video. But hey, I did my best. I'm sure I could have calculated the kills and other stats much better to remove any inconsistencies and calculations, but I'm still proud of what I did. And it's kind of too late to go back unless I want to delay this video by a month or more, and it's already taken, I think, a year, maybe more at this point. So, although I'm still going to calculate these 2 weapons, assuming a horde size of 32, in the spreadsheet listed in the description, I've included 2 tabs giving the final weapon order, assuming a horde size of 24, the horde size from Black Ops 3 and before, and a horde size of 40, the true horde size of Black Ops 6. This is sort of my way of repenting for getting or not realizing the actual horde size. These 2 tabs are mostly for people curious to see what the actual numbers and rankings will be, even if the top weapons are going to be pretty much the exact same. Regardless, here we are, on the final 2 weapons of Black Ops 6, the 2 forms of the Gorgofex. I say 2 because the original form is unupgradable, so it doesn't count in my eyes. It's not reached its full potential, in the same way that the Wrath of the Ancients isn't included. We will start with the weaker of the 2, the blue Gorgofex Corpse Loader. Despite being able to clear an entire horde of 32 in 1 shot, but no more, the Gorgofex Corpse Loader is worse than the N, simply because it is too slow and not nearly as destructive in the long run. Sure, in the short run, this Ghost of Panos can wipe an entire horde of 32 very efficiently, but it takes 2 seconds for the zombies not hit with the initial blast to get dragged up into the air and obliterated. Fortunately, this weapon can kill 5 zombies instantly from the initial shot, meaning by using a ratio of 27 to 32 and multiplying it by our wait time of 2 seconds, we see that the actual time between shot and killed is 1.667. If you're confused how we got that, this is using the same technique from previous weapons. Combining this with our slow rate of fire of 1 charged shot every 1.5 seconds and an even slower reload time of 3.5 seconds, we get a W score of 7.269. A sufficiently mid weapon added to the series, but I promise, the other form sets itself apart from the rest. Despite me personally not believing this weapon to be worth it since we have to kill Blanchard to obtain it, I can't deny that this weapon is a surprising powerhouse. Arriving very late to the party, the green Gorgafex Necrodystonia manages to bump one of the weapons out of the top 10 at the last minute. Yes, it's actually that good, especially when compared to the giants. The secret is the necrotizing pool of green rot that it summons. But hold on, let's back up a little. I'm getting ahead of myself. With an equivalent rate of fire of 0.667 and an equivalent reload time of 3.5 to its other form, there's really no indication that this should be leagues better than its alternate form. But this weapon actually has no delay. The shot hits instantly, the blast damages instantly, and the pool hits once every second, which is already accounted for in the kills. Speaking of, here we go. One last complicated math section for the road. The Gorgafex N, when fully charged, kills 5 zombies instantly regardless of the round. Then it delivers a blast of energy that deals 6,500 damage to 27 zombies. However, this damage doesn't actually matter in the long run for max health zombies, since what really matters is the pool that is summoned with the shot. Lasting for 7 seconds, this pool deals 13,000 damage every second to a zombie exposed to the pool. This means that, ideally, those 27 remaining zombies die in 4 seconds because they take 13,000 damage for 4 seconds, and another 5 zombies die in 5 seconds because the initial 5 already died. We had to wait for them. Then another 27 after that takes damage for 3 seconds, and the last 5 takes damage for another 2 seconds. Really complicated, I know, I don't blame you if you don't follow, but just know that totaling this all up, we get 65.66 zombies killed every single shot. Now, you would think that this is much less because the pool is remaining for 7 seconds, but unlike something like the Gauntlet of Karen, that isn't the case, because this gun can actually stack these pools. There's no need to wait for a pool to dissipate. You can simply summon as many as you can so long as there's 2 zombies to hit, one with the initial shot and one by the blast. And you can seemingly stack this damage. I could be wrong, but from what I could tell, it seems to stack. And again, take this with a grain of salt. The weapon and the map haven't been out for very long, and I'm kind of rushing this, to be honest. But from what I can tell, it's really, really good. Assimilating this incredible kill amount with the honestly awful reload time and fire rate gives us a genuinely great W score of 23.364, placing it just beyond the Sliquifire, but right behind its surprisingly equal brother from Cold War, the Cerberus Blazer. Okay, now that my voice is sufficiently hoarse, after after hours of yapping, hundreds of calculations, and more words than the Book of Mice and Men, we have reached our conclusion. From some of the most obviously dog-water weapons to the most surprising champions, we've arrived to the culmination of nearly a year of work. No, seriously, look at when my last main video was uploaded. It's been a long-ass time since I started working on all of this. I started working on this actually before the last major video on my channel was uploaded. Turns out spending most of your time with your family over working on YouTube videos eats up a lot of your time. Who knew? But I won't keep you here any longer. I've eaten enough of your time. Here's your final result. Here's a montage of every weapon's W score from worst to best. Overall though, if your favorite wonder weapon is, say, the original ray gun, don't take this video to mean that I just hate the ray gun or any weapon with a low score. I played up a lot throughout this video just to be as honestly dramatic and hopefully humorous as possible. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter nearly as much as what you think is the best. Just like with Pokemon, each of these wonder weapons is someone's favorite. And I think that is incredibly special and wholesome. Hell, my favorite is the KT4, and I even called it a worse ripoff of the Sliquifier. We all are entitled to enjoy each of our favorite wonder weapons, no matter what this video unearthed, because at the end of the day, we love their designs. And if it can kill even just one zombie, like almost all of them can, then they deserve the mantle of wonder. Thank you for watching. No, seriously, like, thank you. You can't hear it, but I'm bowing because I'm dramatic and Asian. Even if you just watch the intro and this ending sequence, but especially if you watch the entire video, thank you so much. If you couldn't tell, I put in a little too much effort into making this video. Just the research and footage gathering alone took months of my time. If you enjoyed even a little bit of this video, please subscribe and like the video. It lets me know that people like this video and want to see more of it. The more people that do this, the more inspired I get to make more videos like it more frequently. Let me know down below what you want to see next. I promise my next video won't take nearly as long as this one. Probably. Check the description for credits and links to things I use, like the Zombies Wiki, the code repositories, maybe YouTubers I referenced, friends, people who helped, anything like that. Though I'm sure you've honestly probably looked at the description for the timestamps. I'm also going to be including the spreadsheet I use to keep track of everything throughout the video, just in case you're curious or want to do anything with these numbers. Just anyone in the future that wants it, feel free to use it as long as you reference my video here. Keep in mind that although the individual weapon tabs are most recent and up to date, the summary tab and description tabs might be slightly out of date since I just really wrote those for me. So if something doesn't make sense, that's because I just didn't update it. You'll understand what I mean if you choose to look through it all. Finally, thank you to all of my friends who support me and give me words of encouragement. Thank you to Nick, who motivates me by telling me I'm shit and need to do better. Thank you to Treyarch. Although you're being kind of shitty right now with all the AI and microtransaction and operator stuff, I still appreciate that the zombies comes out and, and some of the content can be good, obviously. But thank you to the zombies community. Thank you to all of you watching. And thank you, most of all, to my wife and my son for supporting me throughout not just making this video, but all of my videos. Well, I think that's about it for my heartfelt ending that was very unnecessary. This is me, and I'll see you next time, whenever next time is.